would like to call to order the regularly scheduled Village Council meeting for the Village of Beverly Hills for Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. Ms. Brown, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Abood?
Here.
Mr. Drummond?
Here.
Mr. George?
Here.
Ms. Rajusco?
Here.
Ms. Cascometti?
Here.
Mr. Mercer?
Here.
Mr. O'Gorman?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, with that, would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, with that, are there any amendments to the agenda or a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. George, at this time, I'd like to move that we approve the agenda as published. Support.
Support from Mrs. Cascometti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. George,
Yes.
if I want to pull something off the consent agenda, can I do that when we go to approve the consent agenda?
No. That's an amendment to the agenda.
I would like to make a motion to reconsider because I'd like to pull the meeting minutes from June 16th, 2026 off the consent agenda to correct some errors in it.
Does anyone have a problem with that?
Motion to reconsider that
Support.
last.
All right, so are there any amendments to the agenda?
I would move that we take the first item off the consent agenda and move that to the business agenda 1A, and then 1B could be the next item.
Okay,
I mean, I just want to correct these.
that's fine. Is there support for that?
Support.
All right, all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Now do I have an amendment to approve the modified agenda? Or a motion to approve the modified
Mr. George,
agenda?
at this time, can I make a motion that we approve the agenda as modified?
Support.
Support from Mr. Drummond. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We have an agenda, and none of that changes the fact that D is community project funding check presentation from Congresswoman Tlaib. So the podium is yours.
I will not be long. Thank you so much to Council President and all that partnership with all of you, especially our city manager and others. But we were able to successfully, for 2024, we were able to get the $959,000, 752 to be total, for the water main, Beverly Hills water main lead service line replacement. This year, the request from Beverly Hills was for Beverly Green Park project. We got $250,000 for that. We're going to present the check. I have a certificate, but no, for the 2027, it's in the budget. I passed subcommittee. We submitted for $1 million, but they approved about $746,868 for the Village of Beverly Hills water main improvements. So keep giving us water improvements. Green Parks, absolutely. My residents love it, but we find that they like doing water main, fire department, anything of that sort for community projects. And for my residents, know that I get to put 15 requests every single year, and I make sure to give one slot, especially to the Village of Beverly Hills, and making sure you get your fair share of federal resources. And this is a lot more, direct earmark, direct projects. In the past, again, they've been able to work with them in getting the money in the ground with the various projects that we did before. So I really appreciate, again, your partnership. I know sometimes I get on Warren to submit stuff and everything, but I really do appreciate your patience with our team, and you've been wonderful to work with. But with that, I grew up with the Publishing Clearinghouse commercials, and so I did.
You love a big check.
I used to cry as a little kid.
Yeah.
I didn't bring the balloons, but I did bring the big checks. I know I'm aging myself, but I love to be able to take a picture with all of you and presenting you with the check.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Do we want to get everybody up in front of the...
Yeah.
I will say while we're arranging everyone that we greatly appreciate your assistance. The water project that you helped us get funding for, that was $960,000. The village was able to spend something like $700,000 of our own money money on top of that to get the first quarter of that project done, and that project has been sitting there waiting since forever. When Chris Wilson came in as village manager, he was here 13 years and left 5 years ago, I think. He said his predecessor told him that was the biggest thing they're going to have to deal with. So we finally started that. This would be phase 2 of that. We're able to pay the village match portion because we've been successful in building the water and sewer reserve fund to pay for those projects, and we're happy to be able to make some meaningful changes to
Yep, and the
Beverly Green.
800,000, I'm really confident we'll be able to get it out. The
Love
only
it.
problem is it's in a bigger budget.
Yeah.
So we have to get the whole budget passed and signed by the president. So that's going to take a little bit longer, but the biggest obstacle has been to get it through the subcommittee, and we were successful in doing that.
Well, we greatly appreciate your help. Let's get everybody around here.
Yeah, we have the recycling now. We don't need the big checks anymore.
Mayor, are we coming up here? Mr. George, how would you like?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh, she's clearinghouse there now.
Yeah, remember?
Oh, we remember.
It's like you mentioned a bunch too.
Ryan, you gotta see Ryan.
Is it okay, or you want to yell or anything on that? This is to pick it up, keep with, maybe I get it to the clerk. Yeah, we'll take it.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it all.
I know, right?
Well, we thank you, and if you have pressing matters to get on to, you're welcome to. Okay. I'm not trying to kick you out. I'm giving you the option of moving on to that other thing you have. So I appreciate it. All right, on to E on the business agenda, swearing in of new public safety officer. Director Arnold.
Good evening, everyone, members of the council, members that are in the gallery as well. It's my pleasure today to introduce our newest public safety officer and have Ms. Brown swear him in. He is Officer Roswell Gifford. Roswell came to us by way of the Oakland County Police Academy, which he graduated in May. We sponsored him with the state grant that funds the Police Academy expenses for us. He also was already a licensed firefighter and an emergency medical technician. So he had 2 of the boxes checked off that we need for the 3 in order to be a public safety officer here in Grosse Pointe Park. Roswell is here with his father.
Whoa.
Beverly Hills. Yeah. Old hat. 29 years there, I'm sorry, yeah.
Edit it out.
Yeah. So Roswell,
Chief's bringing the donuts
We're a little
tomorrow.
higher on the niche.com list, all right? Thanks.
can't put that toothpaste back in that tube.
That's okay.
So Roswell is here with his mother, who is a former West Bloomfield dispatcher, his father, who is a current firefighter engineer for Livonia Fire Department, and our very own Lieutenant Rob Ginther is his uncle. So he's got public safety in his blood. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask Ms. Brown to swear him in and present his mother with his badge, and she is going to pin his badge.
Excellent.
This is my
That's what's
favorite.
going on.
When it's happening so frequently.
So young.
I state your name.
I, Roswell Ginther,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
of public safety officer
of public safety officer
in and for
and for
the Village of Beverly Hills,
the Village of Beverly Hills,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
and State of Michigan,
and State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you. We're excited to have you. Looking forward to seeing you out there. And Director Arnold, no worries. The ugliest one I've seen of those was at Ford in a meeting where someone described something as the Cadillac of blah, blah, blah. And they were like, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong building. So it happens. It happens. All right, on to community announcements. Anyone in chamber or online have a community announcement this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comments. Anyone in chamber or online have a public comment they would like to make? Yes, go right ahead. We need you to step to the podium and you give us your name and what street you live on.
Thank you so much. This is for the record. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Mabey. I live on Dunblane Avenue in Beverly Hills. This is my first time speaking before any type of council. I've provided a report built entirely on publicly available records. Because this report is nearly 40 pages, I'll also be making it publicly available for residents to view as well, so that they can support their own opinion. As I worked through these records, one theme kept appearing. Riverside Park has long been recognized as an environmentally significant part of the Rouge River Corridor. The village's own 23 to 28 Community Recreation Plan describes Riverside Park as an important ecological resource. Beverly Hills is also a member of the Green Corridor Initiative and the Alliance of Rouge Communities, organizations dedicated to protect and improving the Rouge River watershed. Earlier village records show coordination with EGLE and state environmental permits for previous work in this same river corridor. More recently, the village announced that construction at Riverside Park was paused following guidance from EGLE pending further agency review. I also found a village-commissioned Phase IA archaeological survey identifying the peninsula along Evergreen Road south of Riverside Drive as one of the areas with the highest potential for deeply buried archaeological deposits. I'll admit, I didn't expect to find a designated ecological corridor, documented archaeological sensitivity, and an active Eagle review, all pointing to the same small peninsula. That combination felt like the kind of thing that deserved a few more questions, not less. I respectfully ask that the village make all available documentation explaining the project's environmental review, including all Eagle correspondence, jurisdictional determinations, restoration plans, and final engineering documents. If my report is missing any information or I've misunderstood any part of public record, I genuinely welcome clarification through additional documentation. My hope is simply that residents can better understand the decisions affecting one of Beverly Hills' most significant natural spaces. Officially, Beverly Hills has less than 1% of their wetlands left. We have destroyed 99% of them for development and residential purposes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? In chamber, online. Go right ahead. Just need your name and your street.
Yep, I'm Jennifer Roma, 19777 Beverly Road, and I don't have a piece of paper memorizing what I should have done, but I just called the city early. I'm like, hey, there's a meeting today. So I've heard everybody's got issues with the deer, maybe like or don't like. However, my dog, so I've got a big yard, I've told you the address. We've got a fence in the back, and the deer now, we've got these two boys that keep hanging out, and he stomped on my dog. I've got a picture, I don't know how to send you whatever, but I don't remember which day that was July 3rd or 4th or something like that. And so I actually called the policeman because I was like, I'm staring at the deer who I'm usually not afraid. And I'm actually afraid. I gotta go with the dog in the back with the fence and hold a leash. And so they happened to be these two deer, I'm assuming it's the boys, they were here again. And I even Googled what is it called? They stomped their feet, blowing, snorting, and they usually, like I said, they usually run away. He would throw a stick, they would go, okay, it's not food, and they would run. And now instead, it just happened again today, and I had the dog on a leash in my backyard. And trust me, I'm shaking because I know my question, and I know unfortunately you can't tell me, but we're very curious, what are they doing with the DNR? I know a lot of people want to give them, so you can't have babies and all that stuff, but that's not going to help me now. Like I called the cops over this to say, like, is there anything they can do? And they said, so I don't even know what I do. Like, I should let the dog go in my backyard, and I don't even know what to do. So I cannot wait. And unfortunately, if I'm correct, you guys, you can't talk back with me right now.
The advice I would give you is to watch the first council meeting in June.
Okay.
Which took place at the Groves Little Theater, and it was mostly.
Yeah, oh, I heard, yeah.
Yeah, so watch that.
I did.
And then we gave, at the last meeting, some direction to administration to bring us back some additional information on a call, as well as additional information on any other options we have.
I heard, are they going to do like a information, ask people a question, the QR code or something, I heard possibly?
Yes.
Yes.
Coming very soon.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So that'd be the perfect time that I can, and I learned how to send the email, so I'll do that. I'll email the picture of the dog, because the dog has like a hoof. Like, it could have been a ribs, it could have been whatever, it could have been me, and the dog did it, like the deer again, and they hoof and stomp, and this is not safe for me. I mean, like, so, yeah, a little bit nervous to have my dog hurt over a deer, because it shouldn't be. I've been here since 1999. Now, I'm newer to have a dog, but, yeah, okay. So I will email the picture of the dog, and I just wanted to and I think I wanted to tell as many people that we can to realize, because we heard there was a mama deer and a deer, and that was bad. Well, now we've got these two boy deers, and they're aggressive, and they usually are not. And I just, so that's all. I appreciate
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We are working on it.
I know you're working on it, but sooner than later?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're trying.
trust me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Anyone else, in chamber or online?
Gilbert, 15984 Amherst Avenue. I recently submitted a FOIA request regarding the village's policies regarding nepotism and recusal, which is not what I wish to discuss right now. My request was granted, and included in the information returned to me was pages 35 to 37 of the Village of Beverly Hills Organizational Policies and Procedures Manual. This section of the manual deals in part with ethical standards of conduct of village officers, officials, or employees. This section tells the reader that there are certain prohibited acts, actions, inactions, and attempted acts and actions, I'm quoting now, which constitute a violation of the ethical standards of conduct for village officials. These include, in part, subsection 2, titled Preferential Treatment, and I'm quoting, "No village officer, official, or employee of the village shall use or attempt to use their official position to unreasonably secure, request, or grant any privileges, exemptions, advantages, contracts, or preferential treatment for themselves or others," close quote. Section 3, the use of information, subsection A, no village officer, official, or employee of the village who acquires information in the course of their official duties, which information by law or policy is not available at the time to the general public, shall use such information to further the private interest of themselves. Subsection B of the same section, no village officer, official, or employee of the village shall obtain information or use village records, documents, communications, or other written or electronic records of the village or those under the control of the village to further the private interest of themselves or anyone else. Finally, under section item 6, titled Other Prohibited Conduct, the reader finds a list of acts, actions, and attempted acts and actions which constitute a violation, again, of the ethical standards of conduct for village officials. These include subsections 2, 16, and 17. Number 2, an act affecting adversely the confidence of the public in the integrity of the village. Section 6, or item 16, rather, appearing before village bodies on behalf of a private interest, such as themselves. And section 17, participating in decision-making, which affects the interest of one's business or immediate family. If I may, Ms. Brown, to give that to you, so that can be properly recorded and put into the record.
Thank you. All right, anyone else in chamber or online? Going twice. All right, we'll close public comments and move on to the consent agenda, which will include number 2, approval of June 16, 2026 closed session minutes. Number 3, review and file bills recapped as of July 6, 2026. Number 4, approve change to non-union health insurance buyout policy. Number 5, approve Clemis participation agreement. And number 6, municipal and community credits contract with Suburban Mobility Authority for regional transportation, otherwise known as SMART. Not all at once.
Oh, hold on. Mr. George, at this time, be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Beverly Hills approve the consent agenda as read.
Support.
Support from Mrs. Cascometti. Ms. Brown, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Radusco?
Yes.
Ms. Cascometti?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. O'Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Abud?
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, thank you. On to the business agenda. 1A on the business agenda is now the approval of June 16, 2026 council minutes. Mr. Mercer.
Thank you, President George. In the meeting minutes would be page 1 on the roll call to order, Pledge of Allegiance. That should read President George called the regular Village Council meeting to order. And then also a little farther down under community announcements where it starts Director Arnold. I would like to strike after, in the first sentence, after was administered, the oath of office to Officer Vargo. Just strike the oath of office.
Did you get those?
It was repeated.
Okay. Ms. Brown got the notes. All right. Do we need to vote to approve those changes? All right. Was that a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the regular Village Council meeting minutes of June 16th, 2026 with the noted changes.
Support.
Support for Mr. Abud. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, Mr. Mercer.
Thank you.
On to 1B, approve quote for public safety window replacements. Mr. Rothy.
Yes, budgeted capital project for fiscal year 27, which this is our first meeting of fiscal year 27, so happily fiscal new year to all, is window replacements at the public safety building. We received several quotes. We are recommending to go with the low bid from Escher Glass, and total cost $59,361. Director Arnold is here to answer any other questions you may have about the project.
Director Arnold. Thank you for joining us. What questions do we have about windows? I know we...
These are all the windows, right?
Yes, 18 windows are being replaced. We're going to replace them with the sliders to awning windows, so they could be open without the worry of any rain or inclement weather. And just to give you the reason why we are looking to do window replacement, it's not uncommon in the winter months, and I've only been here since last August, but to find the command officers, the supervisors, and the officers wearing their coats and their knit caps in their ready rooms, in their report ready rooms, in their command rooms as well, because the windows are just too drafty. Originally installed when the building was built in the early 80s, I believe, so we are going to be replacing them with better thermal generated windows, aluminum windows, and this company came very well recommended to us.
All right. I know we've been making some other upgrades. Happens when you got a 40-plus-year-old building, so.
Yes, sir.
All right. Questions? Did see the list of references. So. Any questions? If not, Mr. Abud,
Yes.
do you have a resolution?
I do. Be it resolved, the Beverly Hills Village Council hereby approves the quote from Escher Glass for public safety window replacement project in the amount of $361 and authorizes a 10% contingency. Funds are available on account 205-345-970.00, and that completes the resolution.
Support.
Support from Mrs. Rajewsko. Ms. Brown, would you please call the roll?
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Rajewsko?
Yes.
Ms. Cascometti?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. O'Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Abud?
Yes.
Mr. Drummond?
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I'm excited to hear if that actually solves the problem, or if there's a need for some insulation blown in or something. So keep us posted. All right, on to number 2 on the business agenda. Award bid for Beverly Park fence replacement. Mr. Othie.
Yes, another budgeted item for fiscal year '27 for the parks includes the replacement of the fence at Beverly Park. This is for both the entire length of Beverly Road and the entire length of Allerton Drive. Fence has exceeded its useful life and requires replacement to improve park security, public safety, and the overall appearance of one of the village's most heavily utilized parks. Low bidder here is Pure Fence LLC. Their bid is within the budget, and it is also their recommendations were also favorably received from some of their previous entities they've done work with. Director Johnston is here to answer any questions, and there's a mock-up of what the fence paneling looks like. It's black. It looks exactly the same as what we have at the park currently, so we're not changing anything like that. But I'll turn it over to you for further discussion and questions.
Council, questions?
I know Susie usually takes care of all the fence stuff, but I'm going to give this.
Hey, this is construction fence stuff. So I went down the rabbit hole on the website of comparing the residential panels to the commercial panels, because as I've understood it, part of the problem we have with our current fence is it is residential spec rather than commercial spec. Do we need to go heavier than commercial?
No. I don't-
You're sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Where residential's kind of tie into the posts, commercial does not. Industrial grade would be overkill for the situation, I believe.
All right. I just want to,
Those will be replaceable without
That's
having
nice.
to take the fence apart all the way down to an end section.
do we need to buy additional, or are we comfortable with the notion they'll continue to make this? And
This is a product that I've been assured will be in production for quite some time. It's very popular.
And this is a local company. They're out of Michigan. The
Elite-
manufacturer.
Elite, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions? Yes.
Are they working something with you guys on disposing or getting rid of the old fence for whatever scrap? Or they're just hauling it away?
They're hauling it away as part of the contract.
Just looking for scrap value.
Oh, no. That was
I'm always looking for value. Come on.
Yeah.
scrapping it.
I heard drop the concrete post anchors at Rocks. He's going to use them for an art project.
Garden edging.
Other questions? I'm excited because this will match all the way across the front and all the way down Allerton, whereas now we have a fence across the front, but not the fence down Allerton is a chain link. Are we,
Will,
I'm sorry?
so that being all the way down Allerton, that fence will now be, above ground to where it's easy maintained, easy trimmed, so you won't have all that growth coming up through the chain link fence.
Which is exciting.
Super
Yes.
exciting.
Director Johnston, do the brick pillars stay and the park arch, that's all in good shape, right? None of that needs to be replaced, this is just the fence panels?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Poles and panels.
What are we doing with the little funky entrance on the west side on Beverly, where it's kind of a little half corral right now?
It was just going to be an opening.
Okay. Yeah.
No need for the extra L shapes. There will be an extra opening at where the ADA parking lot will be installed as well. There will be a walkway there. I believe that was the only additional walkway.
And does this include any of that interior fencing by the pavilion?
It does not.
Okay. Do we need to add that, delete it completely? I don't know what the,
The line of fence, like by the bathrooms and the parking lot.
yeah, between the parking lot and the,
Checked it out to the extent that it's in good shape, so it didn't need replacing, but if
all right,
it's no longer necessary, it's certainly easy.
we'll leave it there for now. And if it's fine, it's fine.
No.
Any other, oh, Mr. Mercer.
Thank you, President George. Mr. Johnson, will there be any openings along Allerton near the ball fields?
Yep, same current 2 openings, one at the ball field and one further down towards the cul-de-sac.
Okay. I know that people don't park on that, but they let people off. So
Yeah, and
it's
there
good-
is an
good to have
ADA
it.
ramp.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, great, thank you.
Any other questions? None? All right. Ms. Cascametti?
Oh, I do, but I was looking at a picture of the park. Hold on. All right, Mr. George, please be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Beverly Hills hereby award the Beverly Park fence replacement bid to Pure Fence LLC in the amount of $433,000 and authorizes a 10% contingency. Funds are available in account number 208-751-970.00.
Support.
Support from Mrs. Rojewsko. Ms. Brown, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Rojewsko?
Yes.
Ms. Cascametti?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. O'Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Abud?
Yes.
Mr. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Motion pass.
Thank you. All right, looking forward to getting that done, and that'll be done, looks like this summer.
Yeah,
Exciting.
probably after the playground is in, then we'll start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
It's going to be so nice.
All right. All right.
Saying it over and over again.
On to number 3, ordinance number 395, second reading. Mr. Rothy.
At its June 16th, 2026 meeting, the Village Council held a first reading on an ordinance that would amend Chapter 8 of the Village Code concerning animals. A memo from the village attorney was presented at that meeting. It's attached along with a copy of the ordinance itself. The document is unchanged from the first reading. I will turn it over to the council and attorney for further discussion.
I don't know if we can, trying to think if we normally go with the, I guess you do you need to do the second reading and then we can have discussion on it?
How do you guys typically handle it?
I'd say go ahead and, I'm trying to think, that's the table setting. So if you want to do the second reading and then we'll have council discussion, take public comments. Mr. Drummond?
Okay.
Yeah. What?
I was just letting them finish their side. I did notice a typo, which I believe was brought up in last meeting, on item D on the first page, section 815, item D. It's got the October 7th, 2026 date. I believe that's supposed to be 2025. So if you're going to read, if you can amend that as you read.
Okay.
That was it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this ordinance adds a new section 8-15 to Chapter 8 of the Village Code that creates a limited exception to the animal limits that were adopted last October, allowing anyone who had more than what the new limit became in October to keep those animals through the end of their natural lives, meaning, till they pass away on their own, whether they become ill and have to be humanely euthanized, whatever the situation is. With respect to dogs, all the dogs will have to be licensed and follow all the other requirements of the ordinance, same with all the other animals, cats, chickens, et cetera.
anybody who acquires or acquired animals or in excess of the number of permitted animals after the amendment was adopted in October 7th, 2025, they do not qualify for that exception and would not be allowed to keep the extra animals. Made it clear that all the other requirements, whether it's dogs, cats, chickens, whatever, still apply. Under Section 8-63, we added another exception that would allow the building of or erection of a larger coop for someone who has more chickens than are permitted under the ordinance. And those are the two main changes. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from council? Yes.
And I know this is the second reading on it, but while I was reviewing this, I did see like a need for a deadline for people to apply for this exception. So what I'm trying to avoid is 5 years from now, the village gets a call about a house that has 5 dogs. And then the village comes and they're like, well, how long have you had the dogs? And they'll say, well, I got all my dogs on October 6th of 2025, of course. But, 5 years have gone by and they never applied for this exception. So I don't know how the rest of the council feels about it, but some type of deadline, I don't know exactly what that deadline is, if it's 90 days from enactment or we just set a hard date that it has to be by. But people who are going to apply for this exception, I feel like we need that deadline for that purpose so it can be tracked administratively. Otherwise, if you're found having those 5 dogs 5 years from now and you did not apply for the exception, then you would have to come into compliance with the ordinance.
We talked about that previously, and part of administration's concern, I think, was having then to deal with the 91 days and being able to prove this through vet bills or,
Sure. Well, I would say like
to
a filing date, right? Like you're going to come in with the exception and file for the exception. And if you have to get your data, I have no problem with that going past, but at least coming to the village and saying, hey, I have this exception that I'd like to apply for, and, more paperwork to come over the next couple weeks or whatever. But that was my concern with it. Otherwise, 10 years from now, we could have someone say that, oh, they've had 5 dogs since October 6th of 25.
And I assume that it would be on, an administrative need to verify that, as opposed to, I think that the part of the challenge is, as well as we publicize things, people still don't necessarily see it, hear it, listen to it. And so then you're putting the administrative burden back on the administration to deal with if there are exceptions to our date. So
I mean, we have the same problem with the ordinance, right? Put in the ordinance in it, it's talked about in these meetings, it's published in the Eagle, it's made known, but people who aren't looking at those things or following would have the same exact problem, right?
Ms. Cascamani.
Thank you, Mr. George. If it's okay, I'd like to think through this a little bit. So, Mr. Drummond, I'm wondering if administration runs into that scenario, because I'm thinking probably a small number of these, right? And so if we have that scenario where somebody has 5 dogs in 10 years and they say, yeah, here's our vet bill, here's our, adoption papers, what's the downside of whether or not that interaction happens with the village at day 85 or day 585? I'm just trying to think like what's the need? Is it bringing people into compliance sooner? Is it, what do we avoid?
Yeah, so my concern would be, it's an exception to the ordinance. So people have to request the exception. And if you don't give a deadline, no one will request the exception until they're issued a citation. So, and then part of the process in this talks about, there's inspections, there's other things that the village is doing over the time that this exception is in place. And that's why I think it's important to have a deadline for people to apply to the exception. So that way the village knows where the properties are. They're doing what they're committed to doing per the ordinance there. And it's a rule that everyone's supposed to be following immediately, right? Or as of October, and I understand that people who had the situation prior to it is not necessarily fair to them because the rules changed, but that's why we're considering allowing this exception, so people have a way of maintaining their way that they were prior to the ordinance.
Okay.
Again, my fear is if we don't have any deadline for an exception, no one will apply for it, then the village won't be doing what the village is supposed to do administratively by observing, maintaining, and following all the other rules. Because what will happen is the village will get called out on a nuisance complaint from someone about it, and then they'll be in the situation of, then the person will just file for the exception.
I'm sorry, could I ask one follow-up? And because maybe I'm not understanding this right. I'm not reading this that the residents have to apply for an exception. I'm reading this as though it's, people are by right permitted to keep those animals as long as they meet the conditions. Am I missing that they have to, they have to be licensed or they have to be permitted? But we don't do the licensing, and so we're not the check on number of dogs or cats, right? Ms. Kolb, am I thinking of this wrong? So if I'm in that scenario, if I have 5 dogs, do I have to come forward and disclose, or do I just have to have them licensed and keep them appropriately?
It contemplates not a license, not talking about like the dog license, but not a license saying, another tag on the animal's collar or band around their leg, but it contemplates a notification to the township that we're not in compliance, and we weren't as of October of 2025. We want to take advantage of this exception.
And I think it feels like it's different. I would assume that's an administrative function to lay that out, how the mechanism by which any code modification would be enforced. B, it would be different for dogs than it would be for cats because you're not licensing cats. So it relies on self-reporting, obviously, and the messaging should be sooner is better. I don't know in any circumstance how to prevent something 366 days, 91 days, whatever the number of days you pick is, 181 days. So,
not to belabor it, Mr. George, but Ms. Kolb, could you point out to me where that's contemplated, the disclosure?
Oh, I see what you're asking. Yeah. It doesn't specifically say that.
So that's what I was trying to think through with Andy was, is this a by right, right? Because it says a person is permitted, I think is what it says, right? Any person who was in possession is permitted, or shall be permitted to keep such animals. So it doesn't say upon disclosing it to the, or upon. And so I think of this as, okay, as long as you're following all of the other rules, you're not creating a nuisance, you're not, whatever. You're licensing them. If it's a dog, if it's a chicken, you've got the coop, you've got the inspections. Then, so it's sort of, until a problem is brought to administrations. So then it gets to the sort of bureaucratic burden of if we now institute a process where people have to disclose by a certain date and notify, now this is a thing administration's tracking. Whereas this is sort of a permit by rule kind of scenario. Follow the rules, it's permitted unless you cause a problem, which I kind of like the simplicity of that. So I think, I don't know if we're just maybe reading it differently, because I don't see the.
No, you're correct.
But if we're not comfortable with that, it bears discussing, but
I did just reread through these sections that are in here, and I think I interjected some of my memory of conversation about it into those things when I was reading through, but when I just read them word by word, sentence by sentence, there is nothing about some of those things. So that may be my memory, remembering conversations we had when this was originally getting drawn up.
Can, Mr. George, if it's okay, could we ask administration, are you comfortable with this sort of concept of permit by rule versus what Mr. Drummond's contemplating, which was more of a disclosure up front and an acknowledgement?
There are advantages and disadvantages of both approach. Again, what's put forward now is, again, essentially a permit by right as long as the condition is met. It avoids what happens on day 91, for example. This being said, I do not think there will be many individuals who would be eligible for an exception in the first place. Ultimately, it's a council's call on if they want to put a date on which they have to come forward or not. That would be easy to enforce, but again, it's, just understand that if anybody came forward after the fact, after that deadline, it's, violation notice, violation, you don't comply, you're going to court ultimately. So again, it's, I don't have a preference one way or the other. I think both can be worked with, and that's ultimately what the council's, role is as the legislative body, is to make that call.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. George, for that.
Yeah, dogs are going to be disclosed by licensing. Chickens are going to be disclosed by permit. Cats are off in the wind, I guess, until violation.
Yeah.
Someone, I'm sorry, I didn't want to, you were
No,
going to go.
I was going to say, dogs, it's kind of a different situation altogether because we actually increased the number of dogs that are allowed. So if somebody has had 5 dogs before, technically they've never.
We're in violation.
Yeah, they were in violation. So they were, again, that's up to administration and how we want to do that, because there are people in the village that may have always had 5 dogs. There's a lot of people that had 3 dogs that now can do that legally. Mr. Drummond, when I was first discussing this with members of the group and administration, I was kind of right where you were. We're like, let's just make sure we get everybody known, because the goal is really to make sure we have good regulation and people being inspected that need to be inspected. But then kind of understanding how it worked, and for those people that maybe didn't get the memo on day 91, and what our goal overall is in this, if it is to make sure that people come into compliance, then giving them that opportunity to come in compliance keeps them from hiding, right? And so they're still going to have to provide some sort of proof of ownership, and they're still going to have to be inspected once this is brought to their attention. But the way I like to look at it is it protects the village, and it maintains our ability to enforce our licensing versus taking the chance of it going to court and the court changing those rules, right? So it puts the capability of administration to manage the situation until, outside of that 91 days. So that was kind of what, when we were discussing it, what made me go, oh, okay, I see what the goal is in not having that hard deadline. So when it was explained to me that way, I understood.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. And in the original ordinance, I can't remember if there was a timeline when people had to file their permit, let's say for chickens, when they would have to file their permit. Was there a timeline on that? So someone who had chickens who never filed for a permit just could have them, right? Let's say they have 5. They can have them until it gets brought to the village's attention that they have them. At that point in time, they can apply for a permit for their 5 chickens, and they would be disclosing that they have more than the amount 4 that's allowed. And then they would automatically be granted into the exception if we leave it as is, right?
Assuming they can prove they've had them since before.
They would have to prove that they had them before, right?
Mr. George,
Yes.
There is not a time limit under the current ordinance.
Correct.
For
But you-
applying for
Correct.
that permit.
Right, but you have to, if you were to come forward, you would have to prove that you've had that
Correct.
condition since before October 7th, 2025.
So there's no reason for anyone to apply for a permit until they're caught. At that point in time, then they would say, okay, fine, I'll apply for the permit, and then they'll get the permit, whether they have more animals that are allowed or not.
I mean, you
If I
can,
may.
you can say that about building permits, so. Yeah, so that's the challenge.
Building ones get
There's
caught a
also-
little easier because they're seen from the street a little bit more, but
Right.
it's just,
There's also a limit of 15. So there is a limit of 15 permits. So there is an advantage to making sure that you have and are maintaining one of those permits. Because once right now, with the way our ordinance is written, once we're at 15, we can't issue anymore. So there is still that scarcity, right? Where if you have chickens currently and you want to be able to keep them, you need to get one of those 15 permits. So, I mean, in that instance, there
motivation.
is a little bit of motivation, I think.
That's a good point.
until we are issued all 15, then there's zero motivation to go for a permit, and you just wait to get caught, and then
Right.
then administration's still in the same situation that they're afraid about on the 91st day of having to take someone's animals.
Joy of policy writing.
I get it, and that is any, like I said, that's part of the challenge with building that we run into on a regular basis, is people not applying because they want to see if they can do it without getting the permit. Yes?
George, Ms. Kolb, could we think through that? Because I think this is a really good point, Mr. Drummond. Can we think through this scenario? And I don't want to belabor it because I do think it's unlikely. But let's say we have issued 15 permits and administration, gets a complaint. They go out to some, Mr. Mercer has 8 chickens at his house. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. A resident has 8 chickens at their house and they say, I've had these since October, since September of 2025. It says I can keep them past my natural life. But they can't be permitted because we've reached our max.
Correct.
So they can't really come into compliance. I mean, they can come into compliance with the physical requirements of the coop size and whatnot, but they, if they were coming in with new animals, they wouldn't be granted a permit, right? And so what I think through is, and I know this is maybe not the most compelling part of this discussion, but what I think about when we talk about this is, that we're talking about living creatures and we're talking about families with living creatures in their homes, right? And so is that scenario any different for that family and what they would have to do with their animals?
If all the permits were issued, all 15 were out, then I would say they can't get a permit and they have to get rid of all of the animals. Because they can't, like you said, they can't come into compliance with the licensing requirement.
Yeah. I think that's, go ahead, Mr. Mercer.
Or they can exercise their right to take it to court.
Right. They can challenge it.
And
right.
we're back in court.
Right. It does seem
We don't want to be.
the extreme and unlikely scenario, because I think 15 is,
And I mean,
how many, we've got 2 applications out there? 3?
There are 3 from applicants with 4 chickens or less. There are 2 that I believe would be able to be issued under this ordinance, which would bring us to 5.
Or 5.
and I would assume that falls in F, which is residents who qualify for this exception under this section are still required to comply with all other requirements found in this chapter and elsewhere.
Correct.
And so if there are no permits,
Yeah.
you should have come forward sooner,
Yeah.
I would assume, is the answer.
Okay. I think I can be at peace with that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Public comments? Anyone step to the podium, give us your name and street, please.
Greg Kessler, Beverly Road, 18345 Beverly Road. I find this whole discussion academic because if anybody here on council is violating rules, they will have the chance to vote on their own immunity, which is happening here. And I find it really offensive because we were told to obey the statute. We were given a correction of notice, and we obeyed it. Ms. Hydrazuko did not. She took it to court. Then you guys had a secret meeting, closed-door meeting, about whether to appeal that decision on what the judges said, which most of the people had said on the zoning board had recommended taking that back to court and appealing it. Then you let her go ahead and try to make up a new rule in which she voted for a statute, and now she's in non-compliance with that. Why in the world do we need this amendment? You're just going to keep on giving it to whoever on council violates the statutes. There are two classes of people here. There are the people that get the notices of correction, that obey them, and there are the people that don't. So let me just give you a few facts about what you're doing here, because here are some things. She has 14 chickens. Those chickens produce over 2,000 eggs per year, 630 pounds of droppings per year, 1,820 pounds of feed per year used, almost a ton. Who's inspecting her property to see if what's being done with those feces? Who is going there and making sure she doesn't have rodents there? Because she's had rodent habitation violations before. Yes, there is. I've got the record right here.
No, there's not.
Yes, there was. I didn't say there were rodents there, but there was an area of rodent habitation where they could hide, and you had to clean it up, and it was back on 6/18/2020. It's part of the record.
No.
Yes, it is.
No.
We're not going to argue about that right now.
The other thing is that there's no vested interest, supposedly, no conflict, or no vested interest because she is not selling the eggs. What do you do with 2,000 eggs if you're not selling them? It's just amazing to me that we have been here since, and she voted on the concept of 4 chickens. That was what was voted on October 8th. 148 notices of correction have been given out since then. None for 31531 Evergreen, who was in violation of those statutes that were in place then. For 8 months, nothing. There have been 148, out of the 148, there's been several rodent habitation notices. This is, I'll just get to the point of this. If you're going to allow her to vote on her own immunity, there will be a lawsuit, and I'm going to be party of it. I've already discussed this with my partner, and we have a civil rights case to bring against the village, because there's 2 sets of people, the people in council who get privileges, and the peasants in the village who have to live by the notices of correction. So that's what's going to happen, and I'm not making a threat, I'm promising it. All right?
Okay. I will correct the record on a couple things. We did not have a secret meeting. The Open Meetings Act for the state of Michigan allows for situations where council can have a closed session, which is what we did, to discuss legal proceedings. Okay? That's number one. Number two, when you talk about correction notices, as I discussed at the last meeting when we brought this up, if someone wrote a correction notice to me for my lawn being too long, I can either correct the action or I cannot. If I don't correct the action, I'll get a ticket, and then I can either pay the ticket and correct the action, or I can go to court. So if someone got a correction notice and they chose to correct the action, that's their choice. If they chose not to correct it and to accept the ticket and then go to court, that's also their choice. So I don't see it personally, and this is me personally, as 2 classes. I see it as how people choose to deal with the code as it's written and is being enforced. And there are 2 different paths that people took on how the code was being enforced, and it's got 2 different outcomes. It truly, that path is available to anybody. You're welcome to step to the podium. I'm trying to tell you that the choice to correct the action rather than go to court is a choice.
Okay. You gave her the chance to vote on the 4 Chicken Act. It wouldn't have passed otherwise. There was a conflict of interest there because it was her interest in doing that. She had a conflict of interest because it was a personal gain for her, just like it's a personal gain for her on her property. The other thing that I really want to bring up is the state has requirements for setbacks and stuff for chickens, especially for the amount of chickens she has. And the state has told me they're going to come and inspect her property. And you will be getting that notice, or she is getting that notice, because there's 14 chickens there. The groundwater is being permeated with the feces. And the other thing is...
I've given you some extra time. That's speculation. You're talking about a number of chickens. You're talking about, there's a lot of speculation. I appreciate it. I understand. So thank you for the extra time. I appreciate it. I'm going to ask the village attorney to address the issue of conflict, if you would be so kind as to advise us on that.
So the default position that the state of Michigan sets forth is that every elected official votes on every matter that comes before it. They don't want people chickening out, sorry for the pun, and not voting on issues just because they may or may not be controversial. The state defines conflict of interest as a matter in which an elected official has a pecuniary interest, and a pecuniary interest is a personal financial gain. There is a method to deal with it, and it's in the rules that Ms. Gilbert read from earlier. A member discloses that they believe they have a conflict, and it requires a unanimous vote of the remainder of the body to excuse them from voting. That's the process. And again, going back to my first comment, that is because the default position is that elected officials should vote on every matter that comes before them and not have the ability to wiggle out of the ones that may be controversial. So again, the state defines conflict of interest as a pecuniary interest in the transaction or matter that's before the council.
Thank you.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Again, not to belabor it, but Ms. Cole, would you be willing to give us an example or two of what is and is not? I have some ideas, I think, but maybe you could help us.
So council just approved a contract for a new fence with, I'm going to say it wrong. No, it was Windows, was Escher, right?
Mm-hmm.
If any of you worked for Escher Glass and was the salesperson on the call and was going to earn a commission for that contract that council just approved, that's a pecuniary interest. All of you are affected by ordinances that you vote on for the village, because you all, even if you could potentially in the future become responsible. If a zoning that's a bad example because of legal nonconformities, but there's all the ordinances that you vote on, potentially you could be in violation of at some point. You're not allowed to say, well, you know what, I like to drive really fast, so I'm probably going to get a speeding ticket, so I'm not going to vote on a traffic control order for Allerton Road. Your job is, as elected officials, is to weigh these decisions and make them what you believe to be in the best interest of the community.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cole.
Any other public comments, online or in chamber? Todd Schaefer, I see you got your hand up.
Sorry, took me a minute there. Thank you, President George. I guess I can lower my hand as well. Yes, you've obviously received correspondence from me multiple times, so we don't have to rehash all of that, but some of it may not have made the record, so I'd like to reiterate for the record that I oppose this ordinance in its entirety on the basis that it essentially allows current violators of the law to continue indefinitely being in violation of the law. So by virtue of the fact, as Mr. Drummond pointed out, there really is no motivation for somebody not in compliance to come into compliance until they're caught. And yet the law already requires them to annually get a permit and to annually get dog licenses. So with regard to dogs and chickens, they should be, they already are potentially in violation if they aren't. They've either only licensed the animals that are currently allowed under the ordinance, or they'll essentially be ignoring, 2 steps of the ordinance. As poor Mr. Kessler indicated, the ordinance obviously creates unequal treatment for residents. As a reminder, chickens were never permitted in the village until you passed ordinance 392. And so this isn't any kind of a legacy situation. Folks were already in violation of the law. Whether or not the state views this as a conflict of interest, I don't think there's any question that having to get rid of animals that you've purchased is a pecuniary impact to people. And given that there are a total, according to Mr. Rothy, of 2 people that may be looking to benefit from this that are known, and one of the 2 is a council member, it's hard to square that with any kind of statement that this is not a conflict of interest. Finally, to just say, well, when somebody's caught, they'll come in and we'll sort out the facts then as to whether these extra animals were okay. And that, the administrative burden of dealing with one of those is going to be worse than 5 potential permit holders trying to identify, and apparently it's only 2 that might have excess chickens, having a period of time, perhaps when they come in for their next permit, because everybody will, of course, come in for their chicken permit and their dog licenses. At that time, if they don't bring up the number that is in excess of those permitted under Ordinance 392, they should be stopped from ever seeking the benefit under Ordinance 395 should you pass it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer is a member of the bar, and he mentioned something about people that had chickens ahead of time being in violation of the law.
Mike, we lost our TV, so I don't know if we lost everything. Hey, we're back.
Is
You
that,
can restate it because I don't know what we missed.
so Mr. Schaefer ahead of time to be called essentially, criminals, which they were violators of the law. And I feel like it is an unfair narrative. And so were people that owned chickens before this ordinance passed in violation of any laws?
So that's kind of a difficult question for me to answer because I don't know what was in place before. I understand there were provisions under the zoning ordinance that addressed animals. That was the subject of the legal challenge last year, but I don't know what that ordinance provided. So, because as I mentioned very briefly, if you have a use under the zoning ordinance, it may be considered a legal nonconforming use and allowed to remain. But I don't know, unfortunately, the text of the ordinance that was removed.
Obviously, if it was in the zoning ordinance, it was struck. So there was also another section that I would encourage residents to make sure, all animals were allowed. And I think that it is irresponsible for us to tell, it was under Chapter 14 originally, not under the zoning ordinance. It was dogs and other animals, and there was 31 sections to that ordinance that I think people need to be aware of. Essentially allowing the keeping of all cats, dogs, and other animals. So I don't think that it is fair to anyone in this village that owned different animals, whether it was a quail or anything else, to be told that they were breaking the law when they were not. And I understand that people have different opinions on where things should go, but I do not and will not sit here and listen to anyone, especially members of the bar, tell the community that they were breaking the law for living their lives with animals that were allowed. And Chapter 14, that is where all of our verbiage around animals was after the zoning ordinance was struck. So I don't know, maybe we can make that available to people. Maybe it's something they might want to FOIA.
The other piece to keep in mind is, it depends on what the punishment was. People like to throw around the word criminal, but if it was a municipal civil infraction, that is not a criminal action. It's a civil action. So the current animal ordinance, a violation is a civil infraction. It's not a misdemeanor. So a municipal civil infraction, again, is not a crime. It's just a civil matter punishable by a penalty only.
Okay.
Other public comments, online or in chamber? Go right ahead.
Gilbert, Amherst, I just have some clarifying questions, please, for administration. You go out, you do the inspection. I've heard 14 chickens last year. I've recently heard 12 chickens. How do you know, from an administrative perspective, when you go back next year, how do you know that those are the same chickens?
That's an administrative matter to deal with after we pass this. We're not doing questions and answers with administration currently. You're welcome to detail your questions, and depending on the outcome of this.
Okay, Mr. George, I got it, okay. I need my phone, though, real quick. I don't understand the the pecuniary financial gain, which is to refer to any monetary benefit, profit, economic advantage that can be valued in money. Well, if you get a ticket and you have to fight it in court, there's a monetary advantage to not fighting it if you don't have to. Okay, you're not going to, can someone further explain that pecuniary advantage? Because I see several pecuniary advantages of giving people special treatment. Is it okay if he restates how many licenses are in process? Because I didn't hear them all. Is
We
that okay,
have
Mr.
3
George?
for complying, 3 for 4 or fewer, and 2 that are
We have
pending.
3 full-blown permits issued right now.
As Mr.
We have received 3 applications. One has been issued for sure. The other 2 are in process. If not, have been issued in the last day or 2. I haven't asked. But before.
3 in process.
Since the last council meeting, we got 1 more, so there was 2 last time. Well, there was 4, but 2 were the 2 that could apply to this. One had been issued of those other 2. 1 was under review. It probably has made the case now, and then we got another 1 since then.
All right.
So there's 1 actual permit issued and 3 in process. Did I hear that right?
At a minimum.
Okay. I wonder, Mr. O'Gorman, if that's any proof to you. You know, you gave Ms. Maxwell that assignment that you just didn't understand where this was a minority issue in the community. I wonder after 8 months if that is further proof of that, but that's just editorial. Something also, someone said to me, did you listen to Mr. O'Gorman's comments? And I said, no, what did he say in the last meeting? They said, no, you got to go listen to him. I don't know what he said. So I did, and I had it translated. And I'd like to point out one thing. You say, I think cats to me was a big deal, to be honest. I did run into one lady when I was knocking on doors who had clearly more cats than I would ever be comfortable with. And, you know, she loved her animals, and it was COVID and a time, so I stood 15 feet from the door when I was talking to her. You know, the cats are running around, and all I could think was, wow, could you imagine that I've just put just a policy in place that was this woman with her multiple cats, and, you know, don't know she still lives here, but, you know, if there's anybody who had those animals, and then somebody complained that she had too many, wasn't a nuisance or anything, and somebody made her get rid of her cats, would be heartbreaking. So I can't say that people feel the same way about cats as they do about chickens, but I try to come as these things objectively. I think that last statement's odd because it's all emotional. But I submit to you, you may have been standing outside one of our local nests of feral cats, and I can take you to one where it's at in my neighborhood where she feeds them. She doesn't take them to the vet. She doesn't well, we don't have licenses now, but she didn't in the past. But she's a little old lady who likes to feed the animals, and they're not spayed or neutered. They just keep multiplying. And I submit to you, sir, that 12 cats is too many for any one person, as well as 12 chickens. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else, online or in chamber?
Dale Young, Riverside. So I'm not going to go through the whole list of arguments from last time. I am concerned that since the last meeting, the ordinance is still unenforceable, and I think that's what Ms. Gilbert was getting to. There's no provision, you know, dogs are licensed. That's enforceable. Cats, not so much, The chickens, it's not enforceable, unless you're going to somehow identify what's there and what was bought before October 7th. And I don't see the harm in putting some traceability in the ordinance so that this is enforceable. The other thing is, I believe that it should have an end date. So right now, the way it's written, it says the natural life of the animal. How about, or a year, whichever comes first, or 2 years, whichever comes first. This should not just go on forever. If you look at, if you combine the unenforceability with the open-ended nature of this, it's just going to go on forever. And like I said last time, 20 years from now, we're still going to be having the same discussion. And those things will, be in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest living chickens, but we won't be able to prove that they existed before October 7th, 2025. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Council comments.
George,
Yes.
can I ask a question? Because this comment came up earlier. Mr. Rothy, have you gotten any communication from the state regarding groundwater impacts of residential properties keeping chickens, whether within the number that we have or a higher number?
I did see an email, obviously see it on come in. It was directed to someone at Eagle raising this concern.
Do you recall what the conclusion of Eagle was on that?
I believe they considered the matter too small and to be out of their scope from what the groundwater statutes they're empowered to enforce are.
Okay, thank you. I think there was an allegation earlier that, keeping animals on residential properties was a threat to groundwater. I read that email. I would submit as, someone with considerable background in environmental protection that, it is rare to see water quality impact from pet waste, right? There are instances where, if somebody is piling up, say, dog feces in a wetland, directly in a wetland or directly on the shoreline, like if you lived on a river or something. But, burying pet waste in your own yard is a fairly common practice, right? And I think the conclusion of the groundwater folks that took a look at that was that there was no potential for impact to water quality.
All right, thank you. Council comments, questions, discussion before we vote. Nobody? All right. Mr. O'Gorman, do you have a resolution?
I believe I can, there's not a resolution in the packet, right? So I can verbally
believe it would be adopt the amendment as published.
Yep, as published, with the date change to that one section.
Oh, with the one amendment? Sure.
Yeah.
Be it resolved that the Council of the Village of Beverly Hills adopt the amendment to Chapter 8, Article 1, to add Section 815, and to add Chapter 8, Article 3, Section 8-62, as discussed, with the one amendment in Article 1, Section 815D, modifying October 7th, 2026 to October 7th, 2025.
Support.
Support from Mrs. Cascometti. Ms. Brown, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Cascometti?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
No.
Mr. O'Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Abud?
No.
Mr. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Rajusco?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. All right. I'm sure people will have comments during comments if anyone cares. Council. Last on the business agenda, first reading of ordinance number 396, which is related to electric or battery-powered vehicles. Mr. Rothy.
Sure, and if the council doesn't want to even say that this was a first reading, if there's things they want to tweak still, we can certainly do that, but we do just have to have an official first reading before we have the ability to adopt it. So just want to throw that out there. We've heard a lot of comments, and we've seen firsthand just the operation of e-bikes and other electric vehicles throughout the village and just the surrounding communities. At the request of the council, Attorney Kolb has put together this ordinance, which is new language, mostly on e-bikes. Some strengths of it is it incorporates the e-bike definitions that are used by the state of Michigan in their law, Class 1, 2, and 3. Specifically, again, we're covering our bases with mopeds, electric scooters as well. There's a lot of regulations, which I won't go into a ton in detail, or Attorney Kolb can as well, unless you'd like us to. Again, Section 1 is definitions. Section 2 requires compliance, basically. You have to follow what's outlined in this ordinance. Section 3 establishes parental responsibility for any minors who are violating this ordinance. Section 4 is the various use and operation standards for the vehicles, including e-bikes, such as where they're allowed on sidewalks, bikeways, or in the streets. There is no Section 5. It's a typo, so we'll clean that up. So dropping down to Section 6, which will be the new 5, outlines age and helmet requirements. Section 7 establishes speed limits. Section 8 deals with parking and obstruction. Section 9 essentially gives the village to further restrict in unpaved trails or nature areas by posted signage. So if it's not a park or if it's not a right-of-way, we can still regulate. And again, Section 10 is the penalty, which is a municipal civil infraction, which is how we normally do all of our ordinances of this kind. Section 2 of the proposed ordinance amends the Parks and Recreation part of the code specifically to make it unlawful for any person to operate a Class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike in a park other than in the parking lot. So they can, enter the property, park the bike at a bike rack, and they could ride it again in the parking lot to do so, but they couldn't go to other parts of the park. So that's a quick summary of the moving parts. Happy to discuss further. Attorney Kolb is here, as well as Director Arnold, if there are questions of just ability to enforce and whatnot.
I will take questions as soon as you can just give us a little background on where this came from. Like, is it just from other communities? Is it, I don't know if it's an assemblage of.
Oh, are you asking me about the ordinance?
Yeah, just want to we're not the first in the world to discuss this, so I'm guessing you didn't just craft this from a raw block of text.
There's actually a pretty detailed state statute regulating e-bikes.
On state land.
On state land. And then many communities are dealing with bad behavior, I'll say, of people on e-bikes on public sidewalks and are looking to regulate them because it is a safety concern. So, yes, I have drafted several of these ordinances for local governments, adopting much of the state regulations, but having them apply at the local level.
Thank you. All right. Questions, comments from council? Ms. Rajewsko.
So Mr. Eisenman couldn't be here tonight. He actually sent me a text. So a couple questions, and some of them were things that I also had been looking at. So one of the questions that I was thinking about when I was reading this as well, we go through the different sorts of e-bikes, and they all seem to have pedals, correct?
Correct.
I'm thinking about, I see, again, this is all anecdotal experience, but I'm seeing a lot of kids on what essentially looks like an electric dirt bike. So it does not have any pedals. It goes very fast. It's on the side. And so how would those particularly be regulated? They don't have, they don't have pedals or at all, right? But they are electric. Where would that fall into this? It's essentially an electric motorcycle.
Yeah, so it's going to depend on the size of the engine. It's either going to be a moped, which has an engine under 100 cc's.
Okay.
And anything with an engine bigger than that is going to be more.
Electric stuff. These are all these little.
Gas.
Yeah, those are.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand, but the state does not differentiate when you're looking at mopeds and motorcycles between electric and gas powered.
It just goes by the size of the engine.
Goes by the size of the engine.
So
So
a battery
electric-
would be smaller than 100 cc is how that would be?
That would be yeah.
Okay.
Whatever the equivalent of that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Batteries would have to be converted to kilowatts,
which we'd have
which is in here somewhere.
Yeah, I guess part of what I want to make sure is that when people are trying to figure out what they are and allowed to do where, especially for the ages, that like if it is electric, like we have whatever that is so that they can look on their manual and go, oh, my 12-year-old can't drive that, but when you turn 14, you can. The other thing that when I was reading through this, I think about people walking with their kids, and I live right in front, like essentially the highway to Groves High School, so I'm seeing kids flying by all the time. I think that 20 miles an hour is too high of a speed limit for the sidewalk. I think we should probably cut that in half. If you think about a kid on a sidewalk going 20 miles an hour, running into a toddler on a tricycle, it's going to do a lot of damage. I think that, 5 miles less than the street doesn't give you the right to be on the sidewalk. So that would be something that I would consider us looking into. And I think those were my two big ones. The only other one that I wanted to think about was the part that was talking about, what was it? The age for just a regular kid out on their bicycle being 7 years old, unattended. I just think about my neighbor's kids riding
Street.
in the street, right? But
On the sidewalk, there was no limit.
okay, so it's in the street. I just think about, Ronsdale, there were a lot of young kids and they didn't have there is no sidewalk for them to ride on. So there is always a bunch of kids riding back and forth to friends' houses, and they may not have quite been 7 yet. So I could go either way on that one, but I think it's something we should maybe consider discussing. That's all I have.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes.
Section 4, item C, part A, second line at the very end, there's a typo that says E0 bikes.
Yep, I got it.
And then part D, as in Delta, item 2, in the same section, it says class, so it's this one and the one above. So in part C, it talks about the use of sidewalks/bikeways. In B specifically, says class 3 electric bicycles are prohibited on sidewalks, bikeways, and in a village unless specifically permitted by village signage. And then in item D, number 2, class 3 electric bicycles and mopeds are prohibited on sidewalks. So the language is slightly different between those two things. I think they're kind of trying to say the same, and I was also questioning whether C and D are supposed to be consolidated into one thing. I know one is the use of sidewalks and the other one is sidewalk usage or use. If those were intentionally two different items or if they were just kind of pulled in the same. But then I was just concerned that D2 conflicts slightly with CB. And if that was going to create an issue down the line.
Okay, I feel like I looked at this before and I had an answer in my head, but I can't remember what it is, so I'll take a look at it.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine not making this the first reading, and I don't know if we want to take community feedback on this, or
One thing I do want to, just to add to this, normally with an ordinance, we don't have to have a public hearing. Zoning ordinances, public hearing at the Planning Commission. The state law that says we can do this requires that whenever we do before we adopt it, we have to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit different than how we've done things with other ordinances, including the earlier one today. But I just want to say that we're going to do it a little bit differently whenever we get to that first or second reading, because it's just a state law requirement. Sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to point that out before I
appreciate it.
Forgot.
Yeah.
Section 6, item C, So it says electric bicycles, no person under the age of 14 shall operate a Class 3 electric bicycle, but there's nothing in there about the Class 1s or the Class 2. And item A in that same section only talks about bicycles, not
Manual bikes.
e-bicycles.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'd like to get something in there with the Class 1 and Class 2 maybe, for a helmet and age requirement.
Can we just require helmets?
Well, and then that's my next one. So item D in that same section talks about the helmets. And it, says that someone on the age of 14 to 18 must wear a properly fitted helmet. I know from when
When they're operating a Class 3.
they're operating in Class 3,
Yes,
correct?
only.
Right, only on a Class 3, right. So there's nothing in there for a Class 1 and 2, there's no helmet requirement. And then on the Class 3, it just says properly fitted helmet. It doesn't mention fitting any type of standard like the National Transportation Association 8776, which is the cert that's recommended by most organizations for the e-bike helmets for Class 3s.
Can I add
So-
one thing to that before it falls out of my brain? Can we make sure that's for passengers and
That's a great
operators?
point.
I've seen many a friend on the back where the rider has a helmet and the friend does not.
Yeah, so really the request there is I don't want someone literally with just the Home Depot bucket on their head saying it's a helmet, right?
We do have
We need some type of helmet
Yeah,
standard.
and we do have language, though, that says if the bike is only designed to seat one person, you can't have two people on it to begin with, so.
Yep.
And I'd probably like to know whether there are other places that require a helmet for Class 1 and Class 2, because going over the handlebars at 20 miles an hour is not good. I don't know that it matters that you're at 27 or 28.
I think parents would appreciate a little support.
Yeah.
I see a lot of helmets dangling on handlebars at times, and I feel like I've sent some moms some text messages when I see their kids zoom by without their helmet. I think I hear from parents that they might want a little support.
So let me, just to clarify, would you like to see a requirement for helmet on Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes?
Sense of council?
For
I personally would.
minors, right? Under 18.
Under
right?
18, yeah.
And then you want to add the specific standard, the NHTSA standard for
I think that one's up for discussion of council.
I think it makes sense for Class 3, I don't know.
What was, that is a standard, I didn't catch that part.
Certified helmet.
Yeah, National Transport.
standard helmet, yes.
NTA.
Yeah, and I don't know-
Set standard for a Class 3 helmet, or a helmet for Class 3 e-bikes.
And I don't know if Class 1 and Class 2 just require a bike helmet,
They have a recommendation,
so that's worth
which is
understanding.
CPSC. All right. Sorry to keep going on the list here, but while I'm on a roll. Section 7, item C, says Class 3 electric bicycles shall not exceed 28 miles an hour while using the motor assistance function. I'd also like to add to that, and must follow posted speed limits while riding on public streets. So the speed limit's 25, they can't go 28. They
Yeah.
gotta go 25.
I mean, do we,
They're not licensed vehicles, so that's like where this kind of falls through, like,
yes.
you know.
Well,
As a competitive cyclist driving your pedal bike at 30 miles an hour on a 25 is technically illegal. I think. Ms. Cole can check me on that one. but-
yes, sir.
So,
To your mic.
so going on the sidewalk, and I know the state law says one thing, but we still can have our own rules, right, on e-bikes? Right?
Yes.
So I wouldn't want to see anybody going more than 5 miles per hour on a sidewalk, personally. I mean, when you're going 20 miles per hour on the sidewalk on an e-bike, it's just, I don't think it should be allowed, period, on sidewalks.
I think 20 is fast.
Yeah.
I think some people run faster than 5, though, so maybe we should.
I mean, I rode a sled like on snow, and I was going 20 miles per hour, and it felt like 80 miles per hour. And can you imagine on an e-bike, it's like, you don't have all that weight, you don't have all that gear on a sled, but you're just like ready to.
Yep.
So awesome. I don't know if this fits under section 7 to add another item that said riders must obey all posted traffic signs. So if there was a stop sign or a stoplight, they obviously have to obey those. They can't just blow through them. And then I wasn't clear on section 10 and the penalties. I know it refers me to section 19 of the municipal code, which doesn't like have like a fine structure or anything. It's kind of pretty loose, and it's not this 19, right? It's the 19 of our code, right?
Correct.
Right. So I didn't see anything in there that would tell you how much the fine, the civil infraction, right? So it'd be like a fine, and it wasn't able to find what that fine would be or how that would be, issued. So if a police officer observes someone, let's say, driving 40 miles an hour on a class 3 e-bike, it's violating this ordinance, and the police officer pulls them over, like how they even know what to issue it as per se.
And then
then
realize the kid's
what the
14
fine
years
is.
old.
And the kid's 14, and what the fine is, and then, we're gonna have to mail it to the parent's house kind of thing.
The penalty is actually, section 19 talks about municipal civil infractions, but the fine for municipal civil infraction is actually under 1.8,
Okay,
and it's a maximum $500.
okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Up to. Maximum,
Usually
yeah.
the court figures out what the fine is going to be.
Then do we need to change that reference or just leave it at 19, and 19 is going to reference 18 then? Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
Anything else?
Not at this time.
I don't know if there's anything we want to add to memorialize which roads this does and doesn't work on. If it's village roads or roads within the village with a maximum speed of 25 or 30, so that we're encouraging these things to stay off of Southfield, which is 45, and
County.
Yeah.
Would like
And this
to
would
believe
apply
that's
to
not
village roads, village public roads.
yeah, but I'm saying you can operate up to 28 miles an hour on Southfield Road, which is unadvisable, and I'm trying to figure out how to keep people off of Southfield Road,
Yeah.
I guess. Not that I see much on there, but while we're here.
You can ride on the sidewalk at 20 miles an hour.
So do you want to put a speed limit on sidewalks for all e-bikes? And do you want 5 miles an hour? Do you want 10?
I'd love them not on there. I don't know if that's realistic, but
That's not realistic because they can't necessarily take them on the road, too.
I know.
5 miles an hour.
Wait, Mr. George, can I ask, Ms. Cole, was the question speed limit on sidewalks for all bikes or just for e-bikes?
For e-bikes.
Okay. Are we also talking about that would apply to bicycles?
Not currently, unless we probably spec it here, right?
Well, I just think through this. I mean, I think, I don't know if you guys have ever picked up on, there's like a long-standing, I think, argument about whether or not bikes are allowed on the sidewalk, right? I mean, I've been yelled at for riding my bike in the road. I've been yelled at for riding my bike on a sidewalk, right? Whoever doesn't like you where you are thinks you should be on the other one. But, an average size person riding, going a normal speed on a bicycle is about 10 miles an hour, right? I mean, 5 miles an hour is toddler speed on a bicycle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would just, if we're going to go through all of this, I would like some clarity in our community about what's appropriate activity on a sidewalk, what's appropriate activity on a street.
Yeah, because your current ordinance, nowhere in your current code do you regulate bikes at all. Right. So
this is our opportunity.
This is the opportunity to take care of it all at once.
I mean, I think 10 miles on a sidewalk is fair.
I think it's fair.
I think some people aren't, I've talked to people, again, on my front, that aren't comfortable riding in the street because they can't go fast, so they choose the sidewalk. And I think at the speeds I see those people go, which is usually around 10 miles an hour, they're able to do it safely. I think once you get faster, it gets a little scary if there's anybody else there.
I think there's a mental competence to this as well. If I take a 7-year-old and put them on a device that can go 20 miles an hour, they can't ride their bike 20 miles an hour unless they're going downhill.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I think an adult can push a bike at 20 miles an hour for exercise and have a different competency about awareness of vehicles, people on the sidewalk, slow down, move out of the way. I think this challenge here is you have youth that are inexperienced, can take a mode of transportation that exceeds their natural capability. So in my opinion, we need to consider those types of trade-offs. So, I'd hate to say, hey, don't go more than 10 miles an hour on a sidewalk, when an adult exercising at 5 in the morning can have full wherewithal of what's happening around them. A child who's 7 years old who can go 20 miles an hour, according to this, with parental permission on a sidewalk, theoretically doesn't have the cognition to recognize a car backing down a driveway or a dog running out of a backyard or somebody walking the opposite direction towards them. They might think that person's just supposed to move out of their way. They don't understand right away. So I think from those perspectives, I'm really focused on the young people, using a form of transportation that exceeds their natural capability. Like, I would love it if they had to pedal somehow to make it go with the speed it goes.
Right.
But I've seen kids as small as, first, second grade traveling down Beverly Road, zigzagging back and forth across the road at speeds that they couldn't reach naturally on a bicycle unless they had some really cool gearing or something. So I think some kids, the trade-off I have here, some kids are very competent on off-road motorbikes because their family does that as a hobby. So they've grown up being able to do that, and they have much more confidence and capability. But we're going to have, like, next Christmas coming into spring, everybody's going to have one of these things. And you'll have people that have never ridden them before out there being able to go 20 miles an hour. So I don't have a problem with limiting the speed on a sidewalk, but I think there should be some guidelines to that, because I've biked in the morning, and I will use the sidewalk sometimes when I know I'm riding at 4 a.m. and the sun is down and they may not see me in the street, so I take the sidewalk, and I know the chances of me seeing somebody are very limited. But I'm also incredibly aware of my surroundings, even if somebody's running in a full black outfit. So I just think there's a differentiation between youth and adults. So when we say some of this, I think some of it should be constrained to age. And I agree with a lot of comments Mr. Drummond said. I was in agreement with that. I'd also like to see us add not just second rider, but anything that is not designed to be pulled behind an e-device, like a kid on a skateboard holding a rope. Those types of things should be incorporated in here as well. It's a pretty common fun activity that I did as a child on a bike. And I'm kind of torn on the helmets. I understand the notion, but I think that is somewhat a parental decision. We have a Michigan law for motorcycles that they don't have to wear helmets, I believe. Is that still in place?
It's adults.
It is adults, but what I'm saying is, I'd like to see a complement to that saying, hey, if you've been killed without a helmet on from a head injury, guess what, you can't sue for manslaughter. That'll never happen, but that's my only trade-off, is I know that this isn't, for me, necessarily about the child, because the child and the parent have a responsibility to make their decisions. But if somebody were to hit them and they were to become permanently injured from a head injury, then that person is liable for all kinds of responsibilities. So that would be the one reason I would probably support that, particularly for e-bikes. I think if you can travel 20 miles an hour and you're, call it incompetent when it comes to mode of transportation that fast, meaning you can get on these things without any training, any license, right? My 16-year-old went through a year of practicing driving, right? So I look at this and I think, wow, this is crazy. She's going 5 miles an hour more in a much bigger vehicle, but it's on a road. These people are traveling on sidewalks at about the same speed. Little missiles, basically. And there's a couple other things I can send along Mr. Rothy for comments as well, but those are kind of my main comments. I think some of the class 1, 2 needs a lot more description. I know we say you have to drive on the right-hand side of the road as close to the edge as possible, things like that, but when I think about, like, they can't go on a roadway, does that mean a crosswalk? Does that mean everybody has to hop off their e-device and walk it across as a pedestrian, because that's what they're classified per this ordinance, and then they can hop back on once they cross the crosswalk, or a crosswalk's permitted even though it's a roadway? I don't know if that counts. I'm just looking through the definitions and things and wondering how that works, because I can imagine most kids riding these things in the morning to school or home after school are just cruising across crosswalks, especially if we have a crossing guard, as opposed to walking them across and hopping back on, and then walking them across, hopping back on. And then I think Ms. Rajewsko brings up something I thought about too. We have at least 3 neighborhoods I know of that don't have sidewalks. And, if we have children under 7 that their only mode of transportation is to walk, that could be limiting for some of those kids to get to their friend's house within the neighborhood. So I don't know if neighborhoods
A lot
can be
of times
handled
they're out with a
separately.
lot of siblings, right? So like, it's not technically a parent. That's what I was kind of thinking about.
Yeah, according to this, they have to be with, if they're under 7, they have to be with a parent on that road.
Right.
How'd they get around beforehand?
I'm not talking e-bikes, I'm just talking in general, because I think this covers everything. I mean, I'd like
Thing
to
with the
see,
bicycle, so it is under the bicycle
Yeah.
section, so
Yeah.
if you're 6 years old, you can't ride a bike on the street.
I'd kind of like to see anybody under 7 can't ride an e-bike, but I'm pretty sure there'd be some pushback on that from the community. Because there are competent children that go dirt biking with their parents on these micro bikes that are like 4 years old, and they're probably more confident than some of the 12-year-olds that are getting on e-bikes these days, so. I wish we could do a test, like in public safety.
Say,
And,
bring back Safety Town.
have to test, are you competent or not? And I would encourage the administration to consider something like that, because I know Berkeley does that. They do lids for kids every year, and they do a kind of a training on how to follow traffic, like stop signs and yield signs and what that means and what their rights are as a cyclist, and then they give out free helmets. And I think it's sponsored by somebody, but I think we used to live there. It was a very clever program when we had very young children, because it taught them how to manage their bike when they came to an intersection.
No.
Unfortunately, the kids that
Seen it in forever.
don't get the benefit, but I think it does help quite a bit for kids that that do participate in that. And it was helped by public safety, so I thought it was a great event for public safety to get to know the community too. But just a thought on e-bikes, we could expand that to e-bikes and e-devices, because I have a feeling kids are going to stop riding bicycles altogether eventually.
I do think, given that several of the elementary schools in the community are flush with safe routes to school programming cash, part of what we had talked about 100 years ago, and I don't know if they recall it, but was doing some kind of bike rodeo and getting public safety involved and training. And so there is hopefully an opportunity to do that in conjunction with the elementary schools and invite the community. So, like where your head's at. Yes?
Can I just make a clarification?
Yes.
All classes of e-bikes, all rider-powered bikes, mopeds, not a good example, but skateboards, they're all allowed on public road, on the roadway, the right-of-way. The limitations are for sidewalks. So class 3, none. Class 1 and 2 are allowed, and electric skateboards and scooters are allowed on sidewalks, subject to whatever regulations the council wants to put into place.
There's an age thing on the road, though, right? Like under 7, they can't be out there with their parents.
That's on
Under 10, they have
a,
to
that's
have
on a,
parental
yep,
consent.
that's on a rider-powered bicycle.
That's not e-bikes and
Correct.
So that's where I would like to see something contained, is because I don't know that it says you can't ride a class 1 or 2 on the road.
But maybe kids under 7 are
And
not allowed.
I want to make sure that if they are parental consent or older, and they're riding class 1 or 2 on the road, they have some sort of governance to follow. Because I can tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've come down Beverly home from work or somewhere else in the evening, and there's 3 or 4 kids kind of just zigzagging back and forth. Now, kids do it on bicycles too, but I think a bicycle has a significant greater control than an e-bike, because an e-bike can go so fast. And I'm talking elementary school kids, so these are young, under 12 kids. So, and again, competence is, the distribution of competence on these devices is so vast. I think that's the challenge. There's no way to rein that in. So you kind of have to do these controls without being too constraining that people can't enjoy the community have and the devices they can ride. So I lean kind of more towards leaving it to parents, but I think we can get some rational approach here.
I have just one more consideration, and I don't know what the answer to this is, but.
Can you lean up so we can hear?
Oh, sorry. In East Lansing, you had to register your regular bike. I'm listening to our conversations about class 1, class 2, class 3, and I'm thinking about the things that I see and I don't know what the difference is looking at them. do we, and I don't think we need to have an answer about this today, I think it's something we need to take out the community and have a conversation. Do we have some sort of registration tag with a different color sticker that shows what the class is, so that we know exactly what the class of bike is, and who's, then you see an orange sticker and you know that any kid under 14 isn't supposed to be operating that bike. And also, it's attached to a responsible parent, that if something happens, we can look it up and know who to contact, even if it's an accident and the kid's unconscious.
So under the definition of electric bicycle, it does say shall have attached to it a permanent label.
Okay.
Which accurately identifies its class type. So that's how it's defined under state law. If you want to go a step further and have some kind of license that has, emergency contact information,
I'm just
that would be,
thinking
that would be an additional requirement we'd have to add into the ordinance.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
it
I
could
just
be
think
done.
that when you're seeing them out in the wild, it's hard to tell, like, what's what and where it's allowed and, how, so maybe that's something we take to the community and have a discussion about and see, where other people land on that. But I think it's something we might want to consider.
Okay, how do we turn anyone else? Mr. Mercer?
I have a couple of comments on helmets.
All right.
I'd like to see the ordinance that's written here probably be more in line with the helmet law in Michigan as it relates to Class 3. The helmet law in Michigan, it's required that if you're under 21, I had to go back and look this up, so I'm not coming off the top of my head, but I remembered some of this. But if you're under the age of 21, it's required. It's mandatory at all times for you and any passenger. Okay, so I think if we're having Class 3 e-bikes and they're kind of with like mopeds, and we'll get to mopeds in a minute, that should be, we should just follow kind of the rule of Michigan law. 21 and older, there are some conditions, like if you're 21 and older and you don't wear a helmet in Michigan, you have to have some medical insurance. It's kind of outdated, it's $20,000. It doesn't take long to go through that, but that's maybe something we talk to state legislature about. But, and then you also have to have training. You can't just go out and ride without a helmet unless you have 2 years of motorcycle license, which you have to ride a motorcycle in Michigan for 2 years, or you have an approved safety course. That probably is not something we could do that, but that's 21 or over. Mopeds, it says, other notable, and I didn't know this, age-based rules. Mopeds, if you are operating a moped on public roads, you are legally required to wear a helmet if you are under the age of 19. Okay, so that's the moped. So that could maybe be e-bike also, maybe doesn't go to 21. And then it talks about some other things, but I just like to maybe see us use that as a guide for our helmet rules. That's it.
How do we turn all these great suggestions into something? I feel probably that it's unfair to just say go and modify based on that. So I don't know if anyone on council wants to help, or if you want to make modifications based on this and circulate it back to council. I'd just like to make sure we memorialize as much of this as possible so that when we do a first reading, we're comfortable that it represents everything you just heard, or most of it, that makes sense.
So I took copious notes.
Right.
So I can certainly redline this version that we have and send it out to council ahead of the next meeting, and respond to me individually, please, with any comments or further suggestions. We could handle it that way, and then potentially we'll be ready for first reading at the July 21st meeting.
Which is still not adoption. Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
That would be first reading.
The only thing I would suggest, I know this is a big deal at SEMCOG and the Michigan Municipal League, because, it's just not the Village of Beverly Hills, obviously. But I think you talk to a couple of communities nearby, too, just to compare what they're currently doing, just so you have more references and insight.
For sure. Yeah. And I think one thing that could be helpful that we could do is, and so we could send the council even before you see another draft, is a table where the rows are the vehicle and the columns are the thing. So column 1, sidewalks. You put a Y for yes and N for no, speed limit, we could probably circulate some type of document to that just to capture your individual feedback. Again, it'll be sent to you individually, and you'll have to send it back to us individually, but that could also help in the drafting process as well.
I think ultimately for socializing that to the community, that would be incredibly helpful. So that you had some visual, so that people understood that Class 3s can't go on sidewalks
They can
regardless.
easily show their
Perhaps in the
children.
final ordinance, we include, like in zoning ordinances, the nice thing to do now is when you can turn paragraphs into a table of some kind.
Yeah.
Is a good direction to go. At the very least, we're going to have to make one anyway so we can answer your questions on what's in this thing.
Mr. George, I mean, probably getting ahead of ourselves, but you made a good point that the Safe Routes to School money is available, right? That we had talked about doing some activities with the schools. I mean, I think there's every opportunity for public safety or someone to go, do a bike safety assembly at each of our elementary schools, right? You bring this little handout with that sticker, right? Like, oh, you guys all just got these for your birthdays? Like, I don't think that's unreasonable, right? It's turning into a real issue in our community. I mean, we're hearing from people all of the time. So I think some outreach.
And you got to try to avoid two of them tonight on your way to the council
Sure
meeting.
did.
You did a nice job, though.
Thank you. Thank you. Saw those guys coming. I was like, that's that white e-bike everyone's always talking about.
I know you.
I know where you live now.
Yes, you do now.
And
If
I
we
know
do
your
something
name.
that involves the elementary schools, I encourage us to go beyond that too, because we have a lot of residents that go to private school and maybe go to parochial school, so we may not hit them, and I want to make sure we hit everybody, so.
Yeah, but I think we could have a nice strategy of, a nice article in the Villager with, graphic handout, website update. I mean, we could do I think we could do a nice job around this, I mean, and I think, at least Queen of Martyrs got that Safe Routes money, right? And so
Queen
we're
of
not
Martyrs
limited,
did,
we're not
Berkshire,
limited to our public schools.
Greenfield,
right?
Beverly,
So,
Queen of Martyrs got double.
yeah, I'm sure.
Bingham Farms.
And just one more comment in compliment to what Mr. Abood said, Mr. Rothi, is when we do this review and we do kind of a benchmark to surrounding communities, it'd probably be important to make sure that if we have anything that's significantly constraining compared to surrounding communities, we have a discussion about that, because you wouldn't want somebody from an adjoining community to cross the road into our community being in violation just by proximity. So I know growing up, there was an issue with mopeds. That was like, anybody my age probably remembers that. Mopeds came out, it was just like this. Kids could all of a sudden go really fast down the road. And there are communities that didn't allow them, so kids would ride into those communities to visit a friend, and it became a major issue. So anyway, just wanted to highlight we should be doing benchmarking to make sure we don't have anything super constraining.
I just thought of one other thing. And I don't know if this is the time to address this or not, but it's been brought up and there's been questions. Do we include something in here for electric golf carts? Because I've had the police pull people over and tell them they aren't allowed. I've had other people say and I believe that we have to have an ordinance allowing them in order for them to technically be allowed. And so is this the right place to put that language in and handle that one way or the other?
I would ask for feedback from the attorney on that.
Just
And it
maybe
doesn't
we
have to be now.
talk about that next time.
If you could put that on the list of things to contemplate.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's also in the state legislature.
And if that
My neighbor
includes,
had asked me a while ago, and I was like, I don't know what the answer is. And I started
Particular golf
looking into it,
carts.
And I was like, I don't know what the answer is.
just thinking of your gator.
While we have this in front of us, we throw that in there.
ATVs.
I have seen a golf cart on Beverly, so.
Yeah.
Driven by an
There's a
adult,
few,
not
there's
a
a lot of
child.
people
There's
that
a
have them and
couple,
use
there's a couple
them, so-
regular ones.
Yeah.
What the rules are. Anything else before we?
Mr.
I had two
oh,
small things, just so we
Go
have clear direction to Ms. Gold here. The Michigan law does require helmets on Class 3s, but only for riders aged 14 to 18. So if we want to make our ordinance more, stronger than that, we can. But that was just one quick point of order there. And then the other question that came up about electric dirt bikes, because I went through all this with my child not too long ago. Those are, they're viewed as vehicles by the state. So for an electric dirt bike, which is no pedals, it's like some of the ones that we do see around, like the Surons or the Segway makes one. You have to have a driver's license to drive those. And you have to have headlight, you have to have taillight, brake lights, horn, all those kind of things. It has to be street legal. So it's viewed almost like a motorcycle is viewed.
And so I think
More of a general warning to the parents out there who are looking at presents for their kid. The electric dirt bikes are for people who have driver's licenses.
I think understanding that and getting some explanation that we can bring back next time we discuss this, so we have some graphic representation of, because I assume in my head, I know what you're talking about, and I see a lot of kids who are not qualified to have a driver's license on these things, so I would like, if we have a bunch of that, we need to figure out what we do with that.
That's the fourth thing on that graphic, under Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, electric dirt bike.
Yeah.
And it's usually no for most of them.
Right.
No sidewalks, no.
And
No.
you were at the park at Memorial Day, Mr. Gorman, you were there.
Was there?
Mr. George was there, and those were what were predominantly being ridden through there at the
There
time.
was one
There's a couple of
concert
those
in
and
the
a
park
couple
night,
pedal
too.
ones too.
Yeah, no
There's some-
pedals, yeah. So,
And there is,
and that's the biggest issue, and that's the reason to get them off, out of the park, at least keep them in the parking lot.
well, and the park does say no motorized vehicles. They went right past it on their way in there. So it is already, I mean, we should write it down again, I agree, but like, it is, we don't need to wait on this ordinance, like, it is already, use your legs, pedal your feet, or don't go in the park.
One last thing is enforcement of it. When it gets to that point, I would like to understand from Public Safety Director Arnold about how the officers are trained for this and what will be kind of the workload involved with this. Because, I mean, initially it'll be like your stats you showed where you issuing a lot of tickets until people learn that you're going to issue tickets. But is there training for the officers to identify this? Is there,
I would prefer we educate before we start to enforce, to be honest with you.
Makes
I think
sense.
we're going to be dealing with mostly adolescents, and I don't want to burden the parents with up to a $500 fine, so I would like to try to get some compliance through education. We could start going to the schools with our school resource officer, seeing how some of the other, how Birmingham school resource officers handling it, just kind of pair together with them and really just push out a big educational campaign first before we actually the schools are going to be our greatest resource to communicate to the parents of the children who have these bikes. And just push out an educational campaign to try to get compliance by that way. I could see instances where violations are written, but I think they would be gross violations, and that's why we were writing them.
or attitude.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Uben.
One last thing we haven't talked about. I know I have a Malaguti, which is 175 cc's, and you have to have a license and everything else, but you also have to have insurance. So I don't know what these e-bikes, are they insured? Do they fall under the umbrella of the home insurance policy? Or when you hit your neighbor's kid, their insurance has to take care of that kid? So something we need to consider, that's all.
The Malaguti was a Belgian dog.
It's Italian, F-18.
Yeah.
Can do 70 miles an hour on the sidewalk.
I don't think, all right, okay. All right. Good talk. Thank you for all the feedback. When we get it sported up a little bit, we'll talk about next steps and when we feel comfortable doing a first reading. I think there's a great opportunity. It doesn't have to be school-specific, but holding them at the schools and inviting the community, I think there's a great opportunity to do that. Publish some dates, figure out what the bike rodeo skills session, education session looks like. Hopefully we can encourage parents to come learn as well and watch their kids, do the skill rodeo and get the education and the do's and don'ts. So I think that would be a good goal for the fall, if we can figure out how to make that happen. Anything else before we move on from that?
Last thing,
Yes.
Mr. George, if I could, and this probably goes without saying, but I think, I appreciate, Ms. Kolb, you said you took a lot of notes. I feel like we did throw a lot of different ideas at you, and a lot of this stuff's really down in the weeds, right? But I think to Mr. Mercer's point about enforcement, right, I agree, Chief, that that, an education campaign comes first, but I don't want us to get in a situation where, public safety's getting calls with, well, so-and-so is going 12 miles an hour on a sidewalk, and, I've had one bike in my life that had a speedometer on it, right? Like road bikes have speedometers, regular bikes don't, right? Public safety's not going to be out there with a radar gun, pointed at the sidewalk. So, it's like anything we do where it's like, okay, these all sound like good ideas, but we have to have some like common sense, like enforceability screen to it, right? And so if maybe once we get something in a shareable format, if, chief can take a look at it and say yes or no, we can, if we get a complaint, we've got to talk to a kid about this, like, is this really going to be workable for us or not? I would appreciate that.
Thank you. We'll call it closed. Moving on, public comments. Anyone in chamber or online who would like to make a public comment?
Gilbert Amherst, I've been schooled this evening that you all create the code, and then it's up to administration and public safety to figure out how to implement, so I understand that. I would like to maybe tomorrow give you a call because I have some practical questions. How many stops or citations are now being either issued or made for the classes of bikes covered under this proposed legislation? If a citation is issued for speed, how do you determine that? Typically with a car, the conversation starts with, Mrs. Gilbert, do you know why I stopped you? Oh, no, sir, I don't. Well, I clocked you at this, and you're in this zone. So I don't understand the enforceability of that if you don't have an actual number and an actual gauge for it. Similarly, for age categories that I heard up here for, I think it was the 3 different classes, I understand with an adult you're going to have an ID, but when they go, kid, how old are you? What does he pull out and prove to you that he's 14 versus, say, 7? I'm making that an exaggeration. And you forgot about all the cool little John Deeres. My kid had one. It was so cool. And Jeeps and Barbie cars that go on the sidewalk. So you got to make something up for that, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is the implication that this is overboard?
Still Dale, still on Riverside. So since we didn't have public comment on the e-bike thing,
What we're doing?
the one thing that concerns me is that it's part of the bicycle statute. We don't enforce the bicycle. The bicycles have the same rights and duties as motor vehicles. But bicycles routinely run stop signs, routinely run yield signs, routinely go through red lights, routinely run people off the sidewalk. So if we're going to start doing e-bikes, maybe we can start enforcing the laws for actual bicycles too. Second is, I think scooters are one of the biggest parts of the problem. So I'd like to look at more, and scooters don't generally even have speedometers. So these kids are just zipping around, have no idea how fast they're going. There's usually multiple kids on one scooter. The one thing I didn't see, and maybe I missed it, is the common practice is for when the kids on the e-bikes and the scooters see traffic, they just go off on the grass and they go off on someone's landscape areas. And so it would be great if we had some rules around either keep it on the street or keep it on the sidewalk, but don't drive through everyone's property. And so, the real question is, and I think you guys touched, are we going to really enforce this? So, education's part of it, but if we're not going to enforce laws for actual bicycles, then are we really going to enforce laws for e-bikes? I don't know. So, second thing, and since this is part of the manager's report, this is regarding the Riverside Park. So I spoke out against Riverside Park multiple times. I thought it was a bad idea from the start. It completely floods in the spring. We've got the dam study going on that could completely change the landscape of everything. I had the opportunity this weekend to take my kayak out, look at Riverside Park from the riverside, and actually come around. And if you go past the silt barrier, the damage and the amount of soil that's on the other side of the silt barrier where you don't see it from the bridge or the road, it's pretty extensive. So I don't know if that was part of your discussions with Jason's and Eagle, but maybe you could touch upon that in the thing, because it is kind of to me, it was an avoidable situation. The whole thing with Riverside was avoidable. And I'd like to understand how we got to this point, because I have a wetland in my backyard. So 4 years ago, when I wanted to do some landscaping around the wetland, I came to the village office and I said, here's my property, here's the vernal pond, here's the wetland, what can I do, what can't I do? And I got some really solid advice from the people at the time. And they said, whatever you do, if it impacts the water or the vernal pond, you got to come back for approval. We got to review it. And so it kind of surprises me that those approvals and that wasn't done before all the bulldozing started at Riverside Park, because mine was simple. I just wanted to plant a bunch of stuff in the swamp. I ended up not doing it, but it's just, how did we miss going to Eagle? So I'd like to understand that maybe during your report. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Jennings, Orchard Way. Thanks, everybody, for taking this up and really spending a lot of time, because it's a big concern for sure. I live on Lasser, off of Lasser, and we actually have a stop sign to come out of our neighborhood, and we stop there, and every morning and afternoon, it's really scary. And, it's great that the kids now have sidewalks from Berkshire, but 11 and 12-year-olds are flying down Lasser, and as I come down Lasser, it's a 40 mile an hour. Those kids are trying to race the cars, for sure. Speaking a little about enforcement, I grew up in Birmingham, and we had mopeds and we had mini bikes. We made them. They were loud as hell. We were all over the neighborhoods and everywhere else. Enforcement became a real deal. I mean, we're always playing cat and mouse with the police, but when you did get a ticket, you had to go to downtown Birmingham to Judge Emery, who was not a nice guy. And he hated little kids running around, and his kids were bad, but it was just kind of scary. But it was a deterrent, because it made us really think about what we were doing. And I think the education thing is going to be huge, but I think every once in a while, some kids probably go to court and with their parents, pay $25, try and figure it out. Anyway, it works. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? In chamber online. If not, we will go to the manager's report, Mr. Rothy.
Yes, excuse me. A week from today in this Village Hall, in this room, and maybe the side room there, we're going to have our kind of open house for the Southfield and Beverly Road intersection study. Again, there'll be people with stations to gather feedback on specific, topics, designs. It come during at any point in the time. You don't have to get there right when it starts. You're not going to miss a formal presentation or anything. The materials and the dialogue and the feedback that we receive from the public, it's not going to just live at that event. It will live as part of like the formal summary of engagement, so everybody's responses will be preserved and their feedback. So again, 1 week from today, 6:30 to 8 p.m. Another upcoming meeting on Wednesday, July 22nd, the Planning Commission meeting and Joint Village Council meeting on the master plan kickoff. Again, we announced that at the last council meeting, I believe. Just want to remind everybody with that.
Is there a grant associated with that? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Anything with that project is primarily grant funded. We did attend the quarterly Southeast Michigan Urban Deer Coalition meeting last week. They're actually working with SEMCOG. A few years ago, I think we had a public comment. They talked about, well, we already did a survey. It wasn't a village survey. It was the SEMCOG survey for them a few years ago. Well, SEMCOG is doing another round of deer survey. It should launch September 1st, go through November 1st. Obviously, that's a little bit later in the timeline for getting our residents' feedback and tackling this issue. So we will still probably be jumping ahead with our own, survey data collection point. Hey, how does deer impact you? So, but it's nice that I've already seen a draft of what's coming for everybody. So it's kind of nice that they did a lot of the work for us on what they were asking for. So, planning on modifying modifying that and then presenting it. I'll probably email it to the council just if there's any feedback. You guys gave a lot of ideas on what you wanted to see, so I'll probably send something to you later this week before we launch it, hopefully next week. As far as data collection surveys go, village taxes and township, which, by the way, the township collects on behalf of all the other taxing jurisdictions, the county, the school districts. All those tax bills are, I'm sorry. And I apologize, is there currently township taxes being collected now too, or do they only collect in winter?
I don't think I saw, I think it was just the
That's once a year.
schools.
Okay, I apologize. I've worked in a few different municipalities, so I did misspeak. But our taxes, the village taxes are out. They're live. This is the second year that we are collecting them here at Village Hall, so people are already paying. I think we took in $100,000 yesterday already just in property taxes, and people are just getting them in the mail. So I do apologize for that confusion. I just sad about the township, and no, I believe their taxes are in this winter only.
I think they're in the summer, not winter.
Is it both? Okay. I trust Chris.
Ours are out.
Yeah, ours are out. Ours are out.
Both are out.
Yeah.
I got township. We got.
Okay, but the township collects again in the winter, though?
Yes.
Yes, so it is twice. Okay, yes, no, I apologize for creating more confusion than was necessary. But ours are out, and they're due and payable in the coming weeks. We have sent the proposed charter amendments for the road millage reallocation to the governor's office. We do intend to bring that back for council's adoption at the next council meeting. We mailed out the villager. BSNA Cloud is set to go live this month, next, and we're drafting correspondence that will be publishing through our channels, but next week we're essentially going to close to the public later in the day on Wednesday, and we remain closed for staff training on Thursday and Friday. Yes, the phones will still work, emergencies, we'll be able to take care of all of that, but our staff are going to be in training on those 2 days. There's a decent chance we might be able to open back up to the public on Wednesday. I don't have a time exactly yet, so I'm going to post it as a total closure all day, and then once we know a little bit more, we can adjust. So that is happening next week. DTE, we've reached out and just kind of expressed, concerns, comments that we've gotten from residents on just the power outages, the storm from the last few days. Also on DTE, the TAP grant project on Evergreen, there's a few sections of the sidewalk that haven't been poured. One of them, there's a pole. I believe we had to reissue DTE the check, not once, but twice, in order for it to finally get to them, but that had been holding them up. They had said we didn't pay it, and it's like, what do you mean? We paid you, back in November. And so they got it, and they were working on scheduling it, and then the storm hit last week. So hopefully soon on that. But the other retaining walls, we're going to have some action there starting, this week now. The road project is underway. First coat of asphalt is already down on Pierce. They should be milling portions of Kirkshire and Burwood. If they didn't start today, it should be tomorrow. So Hutch Paving is moving along in there. All right, I think that was it until I got to Riverside. So before I get to Riverside, any comments or questions just on anything else in the report before I move into Riverside?
Yes, Ms. Cascometti.
Check back.
No, they lost.
I assume we've canceled it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Just
good looking out.
On the pavilion rentals, did we notify everybody who had a rental that the park was under construction?
We have been, correct? Notified, yes, we've been
I
notifying
just
people.
saw a big party this last weekend. I was thinking, there's a lot of kids there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I
no,
just
we've
want to
been-
make sure people understand when they're renting that that's not available right now. Okay, thanks.
Ms. Cascometti.
Thank you, Mr. George. Related to the DTE power outage, but tangentially, if you don't mind. Thinking about the storms, we also saw quite a bit of tree damage, this last week. I saw a resident in East Beverly who lost a very large tree that was in the village right-of-way. And when that thing came down, it was pretty scary how hollow it was and how close it came to her house. I'm wondering, and Mr. Othey, I don't mean to put you on the spot, if you don't have an update now, maybe we can get an update at a future meeting, what the status is of all of the work we were doing around our village trees, inventory, health assessment, plan to take down dangerous trees, all of that, because my understanding with that particular homeowner was that there had been multiple calls and requests for that tree to come down because it was obviously, what's the word, not impaired, I don't know what a tree is. Hazardous.
Dead.
It wasn't dead, but it was a risky looking tree. And so I just wonder if we can get an update. I think, Mr. Johnson put a lot of effort into, a tree management strategy, and we're doing a lot of work in the village that we weren't doing previously. And I think maybe just to talk about that and remind folks of where that work is would be useful.
No, I think that's a great idea. We can put something together.
I believe we approved a tranche of funding in the budget.
Yes.
And so hopefully
Yeah,
we
the
can
pot
get an
refreshed,
update.
as it were,
Yes.
on last week.
Yes, thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Mercer?
Thank you. Has the turf been ordered?
Yes.
It has?
Yes.
Okay. So that was the long pole in the tent, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So to
Yep.
speak. Okay. And on Big Fat Shawarma, did we check that the window signage is compliant to code?
It was something we were aware on. If they haven't taken it down yet, we're aware that there's probably some violations there that they need to address.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Other questions?
Not until we get to the main event.
All right. Moving on.
Okay, I'll speak on Riverside right now. And first, I do just want to apologize on behalf of village staff. I think there was a collective failure and misunderstanding on project scope at multiple levels. I've said before, maybe not in a meeting, but I kind of view three key aspects of communication as communication among the staff, communication between us and this body, and then communication with the broader community. And I think in this time we failed in all three of those areas. So I do want to apologize for just the state of Riverside and it not maybe being what we had all envisioned in our heads. I think it's the scope and the earth and the grading was substantially more than many of us were thinking were going to be happening. The RFP specifically puts the burden of required permits on the contractor. I do just want to throw that out there. I'm not trying to throw that contractor or the village, responsible in that point, but that was a parameter of the RFP, the permit. And I don't believe everything that we intend to do on site does require a permit. It's evident that some of it does now as a more specific component. I don't have a detailed breakdown on that yet, but in meeting with Eagles representatives a few hours ago today, we walked the site, they took pictures, several different people, floodplains, wetlands, and then another gentleman who I think is just general compliance. In the next 2-ish weeks, the village will be getting a letter with their findings saying, all right, here's what we'd like you to do as far as, remediation efforts, or if you want to keep moving forward, what the process needs to be. So, as far as immediate restoration, we will be bringing back the vernal pond. So we don't know what that looks like just yet. They're going to provide some guidance, so the vernal pond is coming back. There likely will also be requiring some level of restoration on the shoreline, or in the shoreline areas specifically. Again, it's to be determined on what that will look like. They were encouraged by, even on the non-extensively lily-padded side of Riverside, they were encouraged by the presence of lily pads still on both sides and natural life, and even the presence of some of those fallen trees. They pointed those out as appropriate features. So again, their guidance on what on the shoreline needs to be restored will be forthcoming, but the pond for sure will be coming back. Kind of the third and final area as far as just the fill dirt goes, it'll be dependent on how the current grading that was done interacts with the floodplain. I believe it's the 100-year floodplain. It might be something a little bit different. So I'm just going to say floodplain right now. So we will, again, this letter will provide guidance on what they'd like us to see as far as that component goes. But again, should be in about 2 weeks. We'll have all that finalized. We're not looking at a fine or anything at this time. And they did again say that, our end goal is, to at least some extent, achievable, permittable, and we may have to modify some things. But again, some of the work we wanted to do, like they said today, something like the path, for example, we might not actually have to permit that at all, potentially. So we'll be sharing more information with them, receiving information from them. And again, I did just want to give a quick state of where we're going and then apologize for how we got here. It's not a process in which we will ever utilize again.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Yes.
One question. Thank you for that, Mr. Rothi. I appreciate that information. I understand that we're going to have to wait for the letter violation notice from Eagle to come outlining exactly, where we deviated from requirements and what's expected. But, one thing that's clear to me is that, I think there was a gap in what some people understood the scope of the project to be and what happened out there. And I'm not at all interested in pointing fingers on how that came to be. But one thing that strikes me is that I don't think that our contractor was either qualified to work in an environmentally sensitive area, or we were not explicit enough with our expectations for work in an environmentally sensitive area. And so what I'm wondering is, in anticipation of some level of remedial work having to get done out there, have we started considering whose professional services we might need to figure out what has to happen there? I'm anticipating we're either looking at removing a good deal of soil, stabilizing a shoreline, replacing a vernal pool is not, particularly difficult work. But I do think we should be considering engaging the services of someone who has skill and expertise in ecological restoration. And, our DPW folks, our landscape folks do a lot of good work in their lane. I don't think this is their lane. So I just wonder if you've started either with our consultant, with our engineering firm, they have some onboard in-house resources, or if we're thinking about other consultants in that way, or other resources.
Yeah, all options are being considered with consultants, with other resources. Again, we met with them just a few hours ago, so we are working in that direction, though. We're in alignment there.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Rothi.
Other questions, comments? I appreciate the update, and there is I think a lot of shared responsibility for this. I've learned a bunch of lessons, and I think you have, the Public Works has, hopefully our contractor has. So I get how we got here. Now it's just figuring out what do we need to do, to move forward more intelligently, and how do we put systems in place to make sure that we don't have this type of situation again. So that's a lot of what I want to focus on and figure out. And I understand we all sat here and voted to hire that contractor. But if we're not getting what we need, then we need to be clear with them and just have better mechanisms in place to shut things down if we see them going pear-shaped, and make sure our contracts are equipped to deal with this type of situation, and that our procedures, so that when we are, permits come first before we're mobilized. And a lot of that is, this is the challenge with doing things, is that if you do something you haven't done before, sometimes you don't get all the steps right. So I would like to, it doesn't have to be now, but I would like to figure that out. How do we build the mechanism to make sure we've got better accountability and process around this, any type of other than kind of bread and butter project going forward. And one of the things I've learned, obviously, is when we don't staff for engineers, and we say we use outsourced engineers, we should use them when we didn't here. So, anything else on that, on the manager report, before we move to public safety report? If not, public safety report. I'm hoping that in 2 weeks we have a better, more granular report out on that and path forward. So, Director Arnold.
Good evening. Not a lot to report with the public safety. Obviously, the health of the department is doing very well. We've been able to recruit, retain, train some outstanding officers that are complementing the outstanding staff that we had previous to their arrival. It's exciting. We just swore in a young man who barely is old enough to buy beer. So that's exciting to me, to have youth in the department. It complements the experience that we have as well, so we're very well-rounded. Statistically, we're doing well. Our traffic enforcement is still keeping relatively high numbers, and it's having an effect on a lot of other things, specifically accidents. We have high traffic enforcement. We've had low accidents for 4 of the last 5 months. I can't explain May. That's a little bit of an anomaly, but lower traffic accidents lead to lower injury accidents, which lead to lower medical runs as well. And we're seeing lower numbers in all of those areas because we're seeing higher numbers in our traffic enforcement. So I compliment the officers who are doing their job and commend the supervisors that are motivating to consistently do it. One thing that kind of stands out on me is our stolen vehicles, and I know if you guys got the highlight sheet, you saw how I highlighted that in red specifically. Please pass it along to your neighbors, to your friends. We've had 13 stolen cars since September of 2025 to June of 2026. 12 of them, the keys were in the vehicle. This is a crime that we can 100% control. People that steal cars, they're very resourceful, but I don't think we should make it easy for them. And that's clearly what we're doing. If 99% of the cars that were taken out of our city, out of our village over the last 16 months were by way of unlocked doors with keys in the cup holder. It's a little frustrating to me. We can control that crime. So tell your neighbors, tell people you know, please take your keys in your car, out of your car, and lock your doors. I have nothing else to report unless you have any questions of me.
Questions?
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, no, love it. I know it fluctuates. I know people move in and out, but being fully staffed feels really good. So,
One more.
Oh,
we did lose Officer David Gibson. I don't know if you guys knew David or not. He had a great opportunity to go back to the Wixom Fire Department where they gave him an administrative training role. And he was very excited to take it. But we are 9/10 to the way of replacing him already. We've had some outstanding candidates, and we are in the process of hiring someone who has 8 years of firefighting experience, which excites me because we don't fight a lot of fires. So when you can bring somebody in that has a lot of firefighting experience, it's very helpful to us.
All right.
We had a good 1 week of everything, actually.
We had a great 1 week.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
All this talk about bikes, and I'm wondering where are we at with our super fun bike patrol? I know everybody was so excited about this.
I needed to get our staffing levels up before I could take officers out of cars and put them on
Gotcha.
bikes. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So I anticipate that being a next year project.
I gotcha. Perfect.
They're e-bikes.
E-bikes.
Oh, yeah, I think that's what we authorized. And can you remind us of the name of the PSO who came in with a bunch of medals?
Oh, that was Nick Pointer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we sent Officer Pointer to the Beverly Hills Athletic Club 11 and under swim meet where they had about 450 kids from a bunch of different swim clubs, and he got to show off his medals and really impressed the kids. And I think he made some friends with the coaches there. So hopefully he can go swim with them. So that was exciting. I love
He's an accomplished swimmer.
He did not swim, but he might
erased the kids.
He might, just clowning 8-year-olds left and right. No, but any chance we can get to tie the guys in, the public safety officers in with the community and some of the community events and points of common interest, I'm all for it, so let us know.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Anything else? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to think that takes us to council comments, if nothing else for administration. Mr. Mercer.
I have no additional comments tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mr. O'Gorman.
No comments this evening, thank you.
All right. Ms. Cascometti.
Just brief comments, Mr. George, thank you. Mr. Ruthie, thank you for the update on Riverside Park. I know that's been a big issue for you and for your staff this week, so I appreciate the update and the time you spent with Eagle earlier trying to figure out what's going on out there. I want to thank the resident that came and talked, and I know we heard from a couple people about Riverside Park tonight, and I think a lot of us have heard from neighbors and residents, and we've seen, social media interest in it, and so I just, I will echo your remarks that, I think there was some kind of gap in, what we expected the project to be and then what it looks like on the ground. And so I just want to make sure that moving forward, once we get the on-the-ground fix at Riverside Park addressed, I think there's a lot of work to do there, that we then take a look at our internal processes a bit to figure out just kind of how this happened, right? And whether or not that's, identifying, certain areas in the village that we're going to deem, environmentally sensitive and maybe need an extra level of review, or if we, need to engage a little bit differently with the park board or something. I don't think I know tonight what I think the solution is. I just want to make sure that, we're able to do the kind of projects we're interested in and do them the right way and meet the expectations of our residents and obviously do the work compliantly. So I would really appreciate, your insight, for future conversations about how we just, make sure that we're doing this work as responsibly as we can. And I appreciate the really thoughtful conversation around the e-bike conversation. Apparently there's mixed opinions in the community about how we should address this, but I think overwhelmingly I hear from folks that are just genuinely worried that someone's going to get hurt and that someone is going to be a child. Right, and so I appreciate, Ms. Kolb, all the research you did to try to bring us some options. And, maybe there's not a model ordinance yet from.
But I think that it's kind of a growing pain of a large project like this. And it's not the first time that it's happened here in the village. There were some similar issues when we did buckthorn remediation. But I hope that we can, take a step back and look at where things broke down and make some good adjustments and maybe take some good notes and put in a good process so that, 10 years from now, when maybe some of us aren't here to sit there and go, wait a second, we've got something memorialized. And I think that's, the best that we can do. And the end, regardless of where we are right now, the end result of that space is going to be fantastic. It might just take us a little bit more time to get there. We might have a little more heartburn in the process. And that is all I have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Aboud.
Thanks, President George. SUMCOG attended General Assembly June the 25th. That was in Mount Clemens. And they really have made it a walkable community. If you haven't been to Mount Clemens in a while, it's worth going there. We stayed at a place called the Emerald Theaters, pretty renovated theaters, kind of nice to see all the people. We also had the elections there, and that was one of the things you always do in General Assemblies for SUMCOG. Regional Flooding Task Force seeks community input from residents. There'll be a survey, and I can forward it to administration, and in that way, they can forward it to the residents of the village. If they have any insight or any input on flooding, this would be a good time to get things out there for the SUMCOG to take in consideration when they do their planning. Michigan Municipal League Transportation Infrastructure Technology Committee last month and I will attend July, I think it's the 15th coming up, for the Elected Officials Academy meeting. Cable Board, upcoming meeting, I got this one, Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, 7:45 a.m. at Village Hall. All right, and then we did talk about the microphones, so I don't know what they're doing just yet, but we'll know more on the 15th, hopefully. Next, planning to move the 400 Lincoln, nothing new. Next, continues progressing in preparation for the move at the new facility at the 400 Lincoln Street. No swimming pool over there. They're having a golf outing, as I mentioned last time, which will be September 14th. So if you have a foursome, let me know or let Next know that you'd like to join. The Senior Advisory Council, we have an upcoming meeting at the 1000 Telegraph Executive Building regarding brain health, and there's going to be county commissioners, seniors, and community center directors will all be attending, so I think it's some information it'll be good to bring back. Speaking of Senior Advisory Council, Thursday, July 30th at 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., Normandy Parks Oak on Delamere and Royal Oak. They'll have activities for kids. They're going to connect with free health. They'll do free dental screening for children, immunization for kids and adult, and they'll be talking about housing resources, and this is open to all Oakland County residents. I had a wonderful experience celebrating my 20th high school graduation over at the pavilion.
In what year?
Wow. That was only fourth grade. So I just wanted to thank Carissa Brown, and Carissa's just an amazing person, more so than, forget being a clerk, but she goes out of her way to make things. There was some issues, and I even Mangiarothi got involved. I got everybody involved. I want to make sure we had audio, and they took care of everything, and it was beautiful. And speaking of beautiful moments, I also wanted to congratulate another Abood family for 38 years of blissful marriage. So we've been together 41 years, but hey, if she was right here, she would tell you exactly what I'm saying. I'm in love with my wife still, and life is good. So, hey, that's all I got tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think a congratulations down here, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Drummond.
No comments.
All right. I got a few quick things. First things first, thank you for the conversation on Riverside. I am a huge fan of figuring out what went wrong and trying to move forward smarter. I'm not a big fan of a head on a pike because, I don't know, we've got good people. Everyone's moving forward with good intentions. Me trying to beat someone up publicly doesn't solve it. So we just need to figure out. We approved it, administration managed it, the contractor is doing it. We've all got some things to learn here. So I think we just need to figure out how we go forward smarter. And make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again, and that we're doing it in compliance with Eagle and being realistic about what we can do and getting the best advice on who is appropriate for that job if that's not who we've got. So I appreciate digging into that, and I look forward to learning more, and we'll obviously do whatever we can to help with that. While we're talking about the update on TAP, there is a fence on Evergreen right at Wellesley that has been blown to bits by what I don't know. That was the one where we went through it north to south, but the piece along Evergreen, which is plastic rails, I don't know what happened there. There was a hole punched in it from a car going through it at some point, but now a lot of it's gone. So as we do restoration, if we can figure out who's responsible for that and make sure it gets sported up. It is the only white picket fence over there.
George, if I may, I believe it's the subdivision's fence for that subdivision.
Probably. I just want to make sure we didn't do something.
So that would be who to contact.
The car hole, one thing, the scattered.
I know, I was looking at it the other day going,
There's something that happened there. The administrative framework of code enforcement, a lot of that is, enact the code, and there are things, that are spelled out in the building ordinance. However, there are additional requirements on the building permit, and council isn't sitting here voting on the building permit. That is things that administration is doing to keep people compliant, and that is no different than most permitting activity we have. So that is part of why we are working to make sure administration has the tools they need to enforce it, and some of that is going to be their decision on how to enforce those codes. I appreciate everyone's input on the animal ordinance. This is an area where I would, as I've said on a lot of things, you live and you learn. I am appreciative of the very clear guidance we are getting from our village attorney, so I will say thank you for that. We could have saved a lot of words over the years by having some of these clear answers years ago. So I appreciate the straightforward guidance because I think it's necessary, and I think, the conversation would have looked different had we been able to table set it differently. So appreciate everyone has opinions on it. My hope is that we're giving administration the tools to take the ambiguity out of the outcomes. If we can bring an issue into management rather than having unknown outcomes through a legal process with untold expense and untold timetable, I believe that is a benefit to the community. Last thing I would like the administration to work on, assuming there is no objection from council, but I think it was the year before last, we did this last, would love to find an open night at the pavilion sometime towards fall to do a volunteer appreciation night. We have done this before after we did the changeover on boards and committees. So we'd invite everybody who just recently departed, everyone who's new, everyone who's currently serving, got food from our local businesses or businesses owned by local people, had a great evening saying thank you to the people who spend evenings away from their family. So if we could find a vacant night or two far enough out, invite everybody, that was well received last time. So that's all I've got. With that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?